I was heading to my husband Travis' office, clutching the pregnancy test I had just gotten from the hospital. 2 lines. And also the keys to the mansion I had prepared for him as a gift. I'd spent the drive rehearsing how I'd surprise him. Maybe I'd show him the test and the keys right now, or maybe I'd just tell him over dinner. But everything changed when I reached his office door. I was about to knock when I heard voices inside. "Zoe doesn't need to know, David," Travis said. "It's in the past. It's done." My hand froze on the door handle. What are they talking about? David's next words hit me like a slap. "You used her mother's organ to save Madison Moon's sister. You lied to Zoe, and her mother died because of it. What do you think she'll do if she finds out?" The world stopped spinning. My breath hitched. Madison Moon. My stomach twisted at the name. Madison, Travis's first love. Madison, the woman Ethan Harris, my ex-fiancé, had left me for. Madison, the one Travis never stopped loving. I pressed myself against the door, my heart hammering in my chest. "I did what I had to do," Travis said coldly. "Madison needed me. Her sister needed me. Zoe's mother was already dying." "So you killed her?" David demanded. "I saved Madison's sister," Travis corrected, his tone devoid of guilt. "And I married Zoe. Isn't that enough?" "You've spent 5 years lying to her, Travis. 5 years pretending to be the perfect husband. Poor girl. She loves you." "Zoe means nothing to me," Travis said flatly. "I paid her back by dedicating my life to her. I've done my duty. But if Zoe ever finds out, then so be it," Travis said without hesitation. "I'll remove her from my life if I have to. As long as Madison is happy, nothing else matters." The pregnancy test slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. I couldn't breathe. He treated me like a queen, doting on me, caring for me, giving me everything I thought I needed. I believed he loved me. I believed he cared. Until today. I turned, threw the keys on the trash bin, and ran. The hallways blurred as tears streamed down my face. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get enough air. I didn't stop until I was in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I started driving, but I couldn't see through the tears. My mind replayed every word, every lie. My mother had died for Madison's sister. Travis had killed her. I hit the brakes too late. The impact jolted me forward, and everything went black. When I woke, the sharp scent of antiseptic filled my nose. My head throbbed, and every inch of my body ached. I blinked against the harsh hospital lights, and then I saw him. "Zoe," Travis said, his voice breaking. He was sitting by my bed, his hand gripping mine tightly. His eyes were red, his face pale. "What happened?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why were you driving like that? You could have died." I stared at him, my mind reeling. He kissed my hand, then my forehead. His tears fell freely. "Don't ever scare me like that again. I can't lose you." He looked at me like I was his whole world. He played the part so well. I forced a smile. "I'm fine," I said softly. Relief flooded his face. He leaned down and kissed me again, whispering how much he loved me, how much I meant to him. I let him believe I hadn't heard the truth. I let him believe I was still the naive, trusting wife he had married. But deep down, I was already planning my revenge. Travis Harper had taken everything from me, my mother, my trust, my love. So I'm going to take everything from him. Chapter 2. Travis told me he'd be out of town for a business trip. "Just a couple of days," he'd said, kissing my forehead like the doting husband he pretended to be. "I'll miss you." I smiled and waved him off, pretending to care. The moment his car disappeared down the driveway, I got to work. I'd spent the last few days observing his routines, watching where he kept his most guarded possessions. It didn't take long to find the safe hidden behind a painting in his office. The code? That was easy. Madison Moon's birthday. The lock clicked open on my first try. Inside, everything I needed was neatly organized. There were documents from the hospital, agreements signed for organ donation, records of the surgery, and proof that he'd authorized the transfer of my mother's organ to Madison's sister. Tears stung my eyes, but I forced them back. Beside the hospital records were a series of financial transactions. Payments made to my ex-fiancé, Ethan Harris. For business, the receipts claimed. But I knew better now. My hands trembled as I sifted through them. Jewelry, designer clothes, vacations. He disguised them as corporate gifts, but every single one had been for Madison. I found another pile of receipts. These were for me: the necklaces, the rings, the dresses. For years, I had thought they were lavish, extravagant even. But compared to Madison's gifts, they were nothing. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He had never loved me. I had been nothing more than a placeholder. A convenient wife to shield his obsession with Madison. I sat down on the floor, surrounded by his lies. For a moment, I felt the tears spill over, hot and bitter. But then I clenched my fists. I wasn't going to cry. Not anymore. I took out my phone and began photographing everything. The hospital agreements, the financial transactions, the receipts, all of it. I captured every detail. At the bottom of the safe, I found a folder labeled Future Assets. Inside were investment plans, property deeds, and insurance policies. I made copies of those too. When I was done, I closed the safe, leaving everything exactly as it had been. I walked out of the estate without looking back. The lawyer's office was my next stop. "Mrs. Harper," he said, startled when I walked in unannounced. "I wasn't expecting you." "I need a divorce agreement," I said calmly. His eyes widened. "Does Mr. Harper know?" I interrupted. "He doesn't know. And I'd like to keep it that way for now." He hesitated, but then nodded. "We already have a template prepared. All I need is your signature." He handed me the papers, and I skimmed through them. Everything was in order. I signed my name at the bottom with a steady hand. "Send it to him after I'm gone," I instructed. "No earlier." "Gone?" he asked, confused. But I didn't explain. I left the office and headed to my next destination. The building was tucked away in an alley, its sign faded and barely legible. This was the place. An underground agency specializing in making people vanish. I pushed open the door, and the smell of cigarettes and damp paper filled the air. A man behind the counter looked up, his face shadowed under a hood. "You lost?" he asked. "No," I said firmly. "I need your services." His eyes narrowed. "What kind of services?" "I want to disappear," I said. "Completely." He leaned back, studying me. "You know what you're asking for?" "Yes." He smirked. "And what makes you think I can help you?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of cash. The bills were crisp, untraceable. His smirk widened. "Now we're talking." He motioned for me to follow him to a back room. The walls were lined with monitors, and the hum of machinery filled the space. "Here's how it works," he began. "We'll fake your death. A car crash, drowning, whatever you want. Once it's done, you'll get new identification, a new life. No one will ever find you." I nodded, my resolve unshaken. "I want it to look like a suicide," I said. "Something believable. No loose ends." He handed me a clipboard. "Fill this out. We'll handle the rest." Chapter 3. The headline caught my eye before I even realized what I was looking at. Travis Harper and Madison Moon spotted at exclusive auction, sparks still flying after all these years. My heart stopped, a sharp ache spreading through my chest. I sat frozen, staring at my phone screen as if it had betrayed me. There they were, Travis and Madison, dressed to perfection, glowing as if the world revolved around them. They stood close, smiling at each other with an intimacy that turned my stomach. The photos were everywhere. Madison's hand lightly brushed his arm, a soft, deliberate touch, and his gaze lingered on her face, warm and familiar. They looked like a perfect couple, the kind you'd see on the cover of a magazine, radiating elegance and charm. And to think he told me he was on a business trip. This wasn't business. The auction wasn't a professional engagement. It was a date. I scrolled further, my hands trembling as I read the article. The words painted a nauseating picture of their chemistry, their undeniable connection. Each sentence felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. I dropped my phone onto the couch as my vision blurred. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. The betrayal I had convinced myself wasn't real was now staring me in the face, undeniable and merciless. But then, I thought of my baby. I rested my hand gently on my stomach, closing my eyes as I took a slow, deep breath. This life growing inside me so innocent, so pure didn't deserve to be tainted by my pain. It didn't matter how shattered I felt. This baby was a blessing, a light in the darkness, and I would cherish it no matter what. I had to be strong. Not for myself, but for my child. That's why I decided to go to the hospital. The sterile scent of the clinic didn't calm my nerves, but the warmth of the doctor's smile did. As the ultrasound wand glided over my stomach, the rhythmic flicker of the baby's heartbeat filled the room. "Everything looks perfect," the doctor said, pointing to the screen. "You're carrying a healthy baby." Tears welled up in my eyes, but this time, they weren't from sadness. Relief washed over me, soft and warm, breaking through the layers of hurt. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than pain. I felt hope. After leaving the hospital, I knew what I had to do next. I made my way to Harper Enterprises, a building that had once felt like a second home. But now, as I stood before the towering glass doors, I felt like an outsider. The sleek lobby buzzed with activity, the staff greeting me politely but with surprised glances. I clutched the resignation letter tightly in my hand. I stopped a passing employee and asked, "Is Mr. Harper in his office?" "Yes, ma'am, but you can't go in right now," she said, her tone nervous. "Why not?" "I'm his wife," I said firmly, narrowing my eyes. The woman hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "Mr. Harper has an important visitor, and he doesn't want to be disturbed." I blinked, stunned. "An important visitor? Who?" She avoided my gaze, her voice faltering. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't say." My chest tightened, anger simmering beneath my shock. He hadn't even told me he was back from his so-called business trip. "I'm his wife," I repeated, more forcefully this time. But she only shook her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. He left strict instructions." I clenched my jaw and nodded, forcing myself to appear calm. "Fine," I said, my voice clipped. But I wasn't leaving. I waited until she walked away before slipping into the hallway leading to Travis's office. The door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated for a brief moment, my heart pounding. A part of me knew I shouldn't look, that whatever I saw would only hurt me more. But curiosity and pain pushed me forward. I peeked inside and the air was knocked out of me. Travis stood by his desk, and Madison was in his arms. Their faces were close, far too close. Then, as if on cue, his lips met hers. My breath hitched. It felt like my entire world had collapsed in an instant. They kissed, completely oblivious to the world around them. The way his hand rested on her waist, the way her smile melted into his, it was as if nothing else mattered. I wanted to storm in, to scream, to shatter the perfect little bubble they had created for themselves. But I didn't. Instead, I reached for my phone with trembling hands. I snapped a photo, the camera capturing the exact moment Madison looked up at him with that same sickening smile I'd seen in the auction pictures. It was perfect. I turned my back and just left the resignation letter on my table for him to see once I was gone. Then I walked back to my car. Once inside, I stared at the photo, the image seared into my mind. I opened a dummy account on social media, uploaded the picture, and sent it directly to Ethan, Madison's husband. Back home, I packed everything Travis had given me over the past 5 years and carried the boxes downstairs. I lit the fire and burned them all into ashes. As I watched the flame roar to life, Madison appeared out of nowhere and without even saying a word kicked those boxes. It sent embers and photos flying all over the place, even on her face, but she just smiled. I blinked in shock. "Madison, what are you doing?" "Oh, sorry. I just slipped." "I didn't mean to do it," she acted innocent while still keeping that smile. "Wait, are these photos of you and Travis? Why are you burning them? Did you finally realize how useless you are to him and you don't deserve these things?" I raised my brow. "Excuse me? I'm just saying how you couldn't protect your mother back then, you know, how she died, and you were so useless." It made me boil. Without thinking, I slapped her across her face. It wasn't even that hard, but she fell straight into the fire. Chapter 4. I blinked in surprise. I hadn't expected it, but before I could do anything, a figure rushed from behind, shoved me to the ground, and took Madison into his arms. I thought my heart couldn't shatter anymore, but it did, especially when Travis started to look at me and scold me. "What the hell is wrong with you, Zoe?" "Madison came here to say hi," and then you hit her all of a sudden? He glared at me, and I could feel no affection at all, as if I wasn't even his wife. I pressed my lips together and glared back at him. She brought up my mother and called me useless. Do you think I would just sit tight when you haven't even given me an explanation about it back then? You just told me the operation failed, and what? He raised his brow, and for a fleeting moment, I saw him panic, but then he tried to hide it. Explanation? Didn't we talk about this already? It failed because of her critical condition. Why are you acting as if I was hiding something from you? Because he was hiding something from me. I wanted to tell him that, but I didn't want to blow my cover. There was a right time for my revenge. Before I could speak, he added, whatever happened, there is no reason for you to hurt Madison when she's just being nice. Now, I want you to apologize to her. I didn't get the chance to say another word before Madison spoke. It's okay, Travis. I think she must have still hated me after Ethan broke their engagement and married me. Maybe I deserved her slap. It's okay. Don't make it any harder for her. Consider this my way of making amends. They didn't wait for me to say anything else before they turned their backs. Halfway through, I heard Madison say, if she despises me so much, maybe we should stop contacting each other. I don't want to make things difficult for you. I closed my fist. This was my last straw. I was over Travis now. I ignored them and continued burning 5 years of what I thought was love, but was just a lie. A little later, Travis texted me. I'm sorry, love. I know I hurt you by asking you to apologize to Madison, but she's the head of the Harris project, and I just didn't want to affect the company negatively. Once this matter is resolved, I'll make it up to you. I mentioned I'd get you a gift. Just don't be upset, okay? I ignored his message and proceeded to my room. I knew better. He loved Madison. I was just a replacement. Once upstairs, I grabbed the bag I had packed earlier and left the house. The hotel room was cold and quiet, but it didn't bother me. I was alone, and that was all I wanted. I had barely settled in when my phone rang. It was one of the staff from the company. Ma'am, where are you? She asked. Have you forgotten that you have a meeting with an investor today? But that wasn't the part that caught my attention. It was the voice on the other end. It was Travis, telling his staff to call a team of specialists to treat Madison. I laughed. Was he serious? It was nothing but a scratch, yet he was willing to spend millions on someone else's wife. I hung up and told the secretary I wasn't going to attend. A little later, Travis started calling me. I knew he was going to tell me about the meeting with the investors. It seemed he hadn't seen my resignation letter just yet. I answered the phone, hoping to hear his name, but he didn't realize I had already answered because he was busy issuing instructions to his secretary. Sir, are you sure you want to revise the contract? The losses that the company will suffer will be more than tens of millions of dollars if we do this project. Please, consider this carefully. No need. Revise it, he said. It's what I promised Madison, and what she wants, she gets. After his secretary left, he remembered he called me. Hey, love. I'm sorry, but they told me you missed the meeting? What's wrong? It's important. I'm not feeling well. Oh, I see. Then I'll cancel it now. Just take a rest, and I'll be back soon. I wasn't sure if he went back home because I had spent the whole day in the hotel room, waiting for the perfect moment to announce my fake death. But surely, he didn't come home. As I was scrolling through my social media account, I came across an influencer doing a live stream at a famous shop. I didn't care at first, but then, from the background, I saw Madison and Travis together. On screen, he was busy helping Madison pick out a dress. This was the time. I called my lawyer to send the documents to his staff as soon as possible, then called the agency to finalize the plan. Not long after, his secretary rushed in with a pale face. She was holding her tablet and showed it to Travis. Sir, I think we have a problem. It seems like Madame Zoe learned about what happened to her mother 5 years ago and she's asking for a divorce. From the screen, I could see Travis' shocked face, and then, after a while, another staff member approached. Sir. Someone called. Madame Zoe killed herself because she couldn't accept what you did to her mother. Chapter 5 Travis POV She what? The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at my secretary, the blood draining from my face. Sir, I'm sorry, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, repeating it again, Mrs. Harper. Zoe, she killed herself. I couldn't breathe. The room spun as her words sank in, each syllable clawing at my chest. Where? I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. By the old pier, she said. The police are there now. I bolted out of the shopping mall. Madison was calling me, but that was the least of my concern as I hurried towards the pier. She killed herself? No. That's impossible. She wouldn't do that. The scene at the pier was surreal. Flashing red and blue lights illuminated the area, casting long, eerie shadows over the water. Officers moved in checking the crime scene. I pushed through the crowd, my heart pounding. Where is she? I barked at the nearest officer. The man gestured toward the shoreline. We're retrieving the body now, sir. The word body made my stomach churn. As I approached, the smell of salt and damp would fill the air. The sound of waves lapping against the dock brought an unwelcome sense of familiarity. This place. I froze, realization crashing over me like the tide. This was where Zoe and I used to come on dates, our little sanctuary by the sea. Why here? Travis. I turned to see my friend David standing a few feet away. They're finding her body. She's not. My voice cracked. This can't be real. David shook his head, his expression grim. I told you this would happen. I warned you, Travis. There was no way you could keep the truth from her forever. Don't, I snapped, though my voice lacked conviction. Don't put this on me. Who else should I blame? He shot back. You lied to her. You used her. And now she's dead because of it. I wanted to argue, to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. The officers worked quickly, pulling Zoe's lifeless body from the water. I stood frozen, my breath hitching as I saw her. She looked so small, so fragile. Her hair clung to her pale face, and her lips were tinged with blue. Mr. Harper, one of the detectives said, breaking me out of my trance. We need you to confirm if this is your wife. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My legs felt like they would give out beneath me. The detective waited patiently, holding a small plastic bag. Inside was a crumpled piece of paper, a suicide note. Mr. Harper, he said gently. This was found near the scene. My hands trembled as I took the bag. I unfolded the note, my eyes scanning the shaky handwriting. I can't do this anymore. The man I loved betrayed me. The life I thought we had was a lie. I don't want to live in this pain any longer. The note slipped from my fingers, and I staggered back, the weight of her words pressing down on me. David's voice cut through the haze. She knew, Travis. She knew everything. And now she's gone. I don't care, I said, my voice hollow. She didn't mean anything to me. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but I clung to it. It was easier than admitting the truth. David scoffed. Keep telling yourself that. As the officers placed Zoe's body onto a stretcher, something inside me broke. I told myself I wouldn't care. I convinced myself that Zoe was just a pawn in my grand plan, a convenient tool to get what I wanted. But as I stood there, watching her lifeless form, I couldn't ignore the ache in my chest. Memories of her smile, her laughter, the way she looked at me like I was her whole world, they all came rushing back, each one a painful reminder of what I'd lost. I thought I could keep her at arm's length. I thought I could lie and manipulate my way through this. But now, staring at the consequences of my actions, I realized how wrong I was. The detective cleared his throat, pulling me back to the present. Mr. Harper, can you confirm if this is your wife? I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Yes, it's her, David said, stepping forward. No, I said suddenly, my voice hoarse. It's not her. This isn't Zoe. The detective frowned. Mr. Harper, the evidence it's not her. I shouted, my voice breaking. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, but they didn't press further. I turned and walked away, my chest tight, my mind racing. I couldn't confirm it. Because if I did, it would make it real. I called my staff, find everything about Zoe's whereabouts for the last few days. This isn't her, no. Zoe's POV. The scissors made a sharp snip as locks of my hair fell to the vanity. I stared at myself in the mirror, watching as my reflection transformed. My once long waves now hung in uneven, choppy strands around my face. With each cut, I shed another piece of Zoe Hart, the woman who had trusted the wrong man, the woman who had been betrayed and discarded. I smeared makeup over my face, creating shadows and contours that aged me. Then I added a fake scar along my cheekbone, its jagged line catching the light. When I was done, the woman in the mirror looked nothing like me. Behind me, the television droned on, the news anchor's voice sharp and somber. The tragic suicide of Zoe Hart, wife of businessman Travis Harper. I turned to watch as the screen showed the crime scene by the river. The police had cordoned off the area, and reporters swarmed like vultures. The camera cut to Travis, who was kneeling by the riverbank, his face buried in his hands. He looked devastated, tears streaming down his cheeks as he clung to the body they believed was mine. I felt bile rise in my throat. He didn't care about me. He cared about the spectacle, about his image. He knew the world was watching, and he had to play the part of the grieving husband. The anchor's voice continued. The suicide note left by Mrs. Hart suggests a connection to her late mother's surgery and allegations against Mr. Harper. Authorities are now investigating Harper Enterprises as his stocks continue to plummet. A smile tugged at my lips as I reached for the remote. Click. The screen went black, and the silence felt like victory. But I wasn't done. I opened my laptop and logged into my dummy account. The photo of Travis kissing Madison stared back at me. I hit post and watched as the image went live, accompanied by a scathing caption, "Caught in the act, Travis Harper and Madison Moon, the real story behind the lies." Within minutes, the post started gaining traction. Likes, comments, shares, it spread like wildfire. I scrolled through the reactions, each one feeding the fire inside me. Madison Moon's modeling career is over. So this is the kind of man Travis Harper is? Disgusting. Both of them. Satisfied, I logged out and closed my laptop. I slipped into my new outfit, simple jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. From my bag, I pulled out my new passport and ID, inspecting the name and face printed on them. Emily Carson. Zoe Hart was dead. Before heading to the port, I made one last stop. The riverbank was still swarming with police and reporters. Yellow tape stretched across the area, and the air buzzed with frantic activity. I stayed hidden, watching from a distance as Travis stood by the edge of the scene, talking to Madison. Her hand rested on his arm, her voice carrying over the chaos. "It's better this way," she said, her tone soft but triumphant. "Now we can finally be together." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Madison smiled at him, tilting her head coyly. "I've been thinking. I regret choosing Ethan. You've always been the one, Travis. Without Zoe, nothing's stopping us now." Then she kissed him. I looked away, my chest tightening with rage. Even now, after everything, they were standing there like nothing had happened. Like my life, my pain, my death meant nothing to them. I turned and walked away. I refused to let their betrayal consume me. The port was quiet, the air salty and cool against my skin. My rented yacht sat docked at the far end. I boarded quickly, my bag slung over my shoulder. The interior was just as pristine as I'd expected, modern, spacious, and private. It would be my home for the next few days until I reached my destination. I stepped into the cabin, ready to drop my bag and relax. But then I saw him. A man stood by the window, his back to me. He was completely naked, his toned body illuminated by the golden light streaming through the glass. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. "What the hell?" I shouted, my voice sharp with shock. He turned, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. His face was familiar, sharp jawline, piercing eyes, and an air of effortless confidence. Preston Urie. Madison's ex-boyfriend. Travis's childhood rival. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. He smirked, completely unfazed by the situation or his lack of clothing. "That's a hell of a way to say hello, Zoe Hart," he said, leaning casually against the wall. Chapter 6. I think you're mistaken. "My name is Emily," I said firmly, standing my ground. Preston Urie's smirk didn't falter. "Cut the act, Zoe. I know exactly who you are." My heart sank, but I kept my face neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." He leaned casually against the cabin wall, his sharp eyes locked on mine. "You can drop the disguise. It's useless. I own the agency that made you vanish." My stomach dropped. "So what?" I asked, crossing my arms. Are you going to tell them I'm alive? Preston chuckled, the sound low and almost mocking. Not yet. Not yet? I repeated, my voice rising. What does that mean? It means I have a condition, he said, his tone calm but firm. What condition? I asked warily. I need a fake wife, Preston said, his smirk returning. I blinked, caught off guard. A fake wife? You heard me, he said. There are some business dealings that require me to appear married. You're already good at pretending, so why not put those skills to use? I shook my head immediately. No. Absolutely not. I had spent 5 years in a loveless marriage, trapped in a web of lies and betrayal. I wasn't about to sign up for another one, fake or not. All I want is a peaceful life, I said, my voice firm. Away from Travis, away from everyone who hurt me. That doesn't include playing house with you. Preston shrugged, unfazed by my rejection. Then I guess I'll have to tell the world you're alive. My fists clenched. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say I've got my reasons. But for now, let's focus on getting you where you need to go. I'll navigate the yacht for you. You're kidding, I said, narrowing my eyes. Nope. This yacht is mine, and I'm the only one who knows how to pilot it, he said with a smug grin. I stared at him, torn between disbelief and frustration. Fine, I said through gritted teeth. But stay out of my way. Preston simply shrugged, turning to leave the room. Whatever you say, soon to be Mrs. Yuri. As if. I slammed the door to my cabin shut and leaned against it, my heart pounding in anger and disbelief. I can't believe Preston is here. I ripped off my disguise, tossing the wig and makeup wipes onto the vanity. It didn't matter anymore. Preston already knew who I was. I turned on the television, needing a distraction, but the screen only made my mood worse. The news anchor was speaking in a serious tone, the headline flashing across the screen, Travis Harper claims foul play in Zoe Hart's death. The footage cut to Travis, standing in front of a row of microphones, looking somber yet composed. I refused to believe my wife would take her own life, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Zoe and I were deeply in love. We were building a family together. I froze as he continued. She was pregnant with our child, he said, his voice breaking slightly. We were planning our future. Someone out there is trying to ruin us, spreading lies about my wife and me. But I won't rest until justice is served. My hands tightened into fists as he went on. I am more than willing to cooperate with the investigation, he said. There's no truth to the allegations about Zoe's mother or about Madison Moon. These are malicious rumors. All I want is to find the person responsible and make them pay. I turned off the television, disgusted by his performance. Liar, I muttered, pacing the room. You'll never admit the truth, will you? But I wasn't about to let him twist the narrative any further. I opened my laptop and created another dummy account. This time I wasn't posting photos or stirring up gossip. I sent a private message directly to Travis. The evidence I had collected about my mother's operation, the agreements, the financial transactions, the hospital records, I attached them all. I know what you did, Travis. I know everything. His reply came within minutes. Who is this? What do you want? I smirked, typing my response. Money. A lot of it. He hesitated, then replied again. How much? I leaned back in my chair, a plan forming in my mind. Enough to ruin you, I typed. Travis would give me the money. He wouldn't have a choice. And when he did, I'd make sure he had nothing left, not his fortune, not his reputation, nothing. The yacht lurched slightly, and I felt the engines hum to life. Preston was already navigating, steering us away from the port. I closed my laptop and stared out the window at the open water. Chapter 7. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from Travis. Who are you? Why are you doing this to me? Tell me who you are or else I will hunt you down. Where did you get that? Did you work with Zoe? Is she really dead? Zoe, is this you? Damn it. I ignored every single one. I wanted him desperate. I wanted him frantic. When I finally left the cabin, the fresh ocean breeze hit me, and I realized we were well out at sea. The endless expanse of water stretched in every direction, the yacht gently cutting through the waves. Preston was in the kitchen, whistling as he prepared breakfast. The smell of coffee filled the air, and the sight of him cooking should have been amusing. But the moment the aroma of coffee hit my nose, my stomach churned violently. I rushed to the side of the yacht, retching until there was nothing left in me. When I turned around, Preston was leaning against the railing, arms crossed, watching me with a raised eyebrow. "Morning sickness?" he asked bluntly. I glared at him, wiping my mouth. "It's none of your business." He tilted his head, smirking. "So you're keeping it?" I straightened. "The baby is a blessing," I said firmly. "It's innocent in all of this." Preston didn't respond immediately. He just studied me, his expression unreadable. Finally, he said, "I can be the father, you know." My laugh was sharp and bitter. "No, thanks. I've had enough fake marriages to last a lifetime." He stepped closer, his tone turning serious. "Are you sure? Because I can help you. Not just with the baby, but with Travis, Madison, and even Ethan. I can ruin them all." I shook my head. "All I want is a peaceful life. No more drama. No more revenge." "Are you sure about that?" he asked again, his voice low. Before I could reply, he pulled his phone from his pocket and handed it to me. The video was already playing. It was a breaking news report, the anchor speaking with a tone of sympathy. New developments in the story of Zoe Hart's tragic death. Sources claim that her mother, who passed away years ago, led a questionable lifestyle, with rumors suggesting she was involved in prostitution. Some are calling her death karma. My blood ran cold. "They're dragging her name through the mud," Preston said softly. "And she's not even alive to defend herself." The video cut to another report. Speculation has also arisen about the legitimacy of Zoe Hart's pregnancy. Critics argue that the child may not even be Travis Harper's, accusing Zoe of infidelity and fabricating the pregnancy for attention. Alleged photos have surfaced. I gripped the edge of the railing, my knuckles white. "They'll never stop," Preston said. "Travis won't let you go, not even in death." "Are you really going to let him win?" Rage boiled inside me, hotter and sharper than anything I'd ever felt. Grabbing my phone, I opened the dummy account and typed a message to Travis. "You've made me angry now. It's time to face the consequences." When I hit send, I turned to Preston, my decision made. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "I'll be your wife." His grin widened. "You've made the right choice." I crossed my arms. "But this isn't just about you. I'm coming back to show them they messed with the wrong woman." Preston's grin turned into a full smile. "Now we're talking. Time to make a headline." The next day, the media exploded with news about Preston Urie. The mysterious bachelor will get married, though the identity of his future wife remained unknown. Every major outlet picked up the story, speculating about who the lucky woman could be. Meanwhile, Travis was still trying to control the narrative. On live television, he stood in front of reporters. "These rumors are nothing but malicious lies," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I loved my wife, and I will always love her. I don't know who is behind this, but I will find out. Zoe was my everything, and this baseless speculation about her and our family is cruel." He paused for dramatic effect, glancing at the cameras. "I just want justice for my wife. And for the person trying to destroy us, they will pay for what they've done." The screen cut to an announcement about Zoe Hart's wake, scheduled to start the next day. I turned off the TV, my face cold. "Nice try, Travis," I muttered. Opening my laptop, I logged into another dummy account. This time, I wasn't targeting Travis directly. I sent every piece of evidence I had: the hospital records, the financial transactions, the photos of Travis and Madison to Ethan Harris. If anyone could blow this wide open, it was Ethan. And if I knew him, he wouldn't hesitate to use it against Madison and Travis, after learning they were cheating on him. I hit send and closed the laptop, a small smile forming on my lips. "Let them destroy each other," I said softly. Chapter 8 Travis POV. I slammed my fist on the desk, the sound echoing in my office. Everywhere I turned, there was chaos. My stocks were plummeting, investors were pulling out, and the media wouldn't let up. No matter how many statements I gave, no matter how much I spun the story, nothing worked. It was like trying to stop a flood with a paper cup. sir, one of my staff interrupted hesitantly, standing at the door. What now? I snapped, my patience razor thin. We've tracked the dummy account, he said, voice trembling. But what? It's pinging from the middle of the sea. The location is untraceable. I cursed under my breath, shoving the papers on my desk aside. Are you telling me you can't find who's doing this? The staff member looked down, avoiding my glare. We're trying, sir. But whoever this is, they're good. I waved him off, my frustration boiling over. The dummy account was relentless, sending evidence that tore apart everything I had built. My reputation, my company, it was all crumbling. I leaned back in my chair, gripping the armrest so hard my knuckles turned white. None of this made sense. I had read Zoe's letter a dozen times, gone over every word. She was gone. But deep down, something didn't feel right. What if she wasn't dead? The thought gripped me, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. No, I muttered to myself. That's impossible. But the void inside me refused to be ignored. I hated how it gnawed at me, how her absence felt like a weight I couldn't shake. I didn't love Zoe. I never did. So why did it feel like my chest was caving in every time I thought about her? I slammed my hands on the desk. Enough of this. I picked up my phone and dialed my head of security. I want a full investigation. Find out everything about Zoe. Where she was, who she talked to, everything. And don't stop until you get answers. Yes, sir, came the reply. Madison barged into my office without knocking, as usual. Travis, she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. Before I could say a word, she wrapped her arms around me and kissed me. I froze, my mind flashing to Zoe. Her face, her voice, her laugh, it all came rushing back. I pushed Madison away, my chest tightening. What's wrong? She asked, stunned. I ran a hand through my hair, forcing myself to sound calm. We shouldn't be seen together right now. Not with everything going on. Her expression darkened. You're still worried about the media? Travis, I've lost everything including my modeling career. Ethan is divorcing me. I have nowhere to go. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Go to the hotel. I'll figure something out later. She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I grabbed my coat and walked out, leaving her behind. The wake was somber, the air thick with the scent of lilies and morning. I stood by the casket, staring down at the woman they said was my wife. Her face was pale, lifeless, and still. But something about her felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the longer I looked, the more uneasy I felt. Was it really her? The thought twisted in my mind, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. I quickly wiped them away, angry at myself for letting my emotions slip. She's gone, I whispered to myself. That's all that matters. I turned and left the room, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. As I walked to my car, I caught a glimpse of someone in the distance. A woman. Her hair, her posture, it was so familiar. Zoe? I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. I took a step toward her, but before I could reach her, she disappeared into the crowd. I shook my head, forcing myself to stay grounded. You're being ridiculous, I muttered. It's just a ghost. I turned back to my car, trying to push the thought away. But before I could open the door, 2 police officers stepped forward. Travis Harper, one of them said. I straightened, my stomach sinking. Yes? You're under arrest, the officer said, pulling out a warrant. What? I said, my voice rising. On what grounds? We have evidence linking you to the unlawful death of Zoe Hart's mother, he said flatly. My heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice shaky. Where did you get this evidence? The officer didn't respond. He simply gestured for me to step away from the car. As they handcuffed me, my mind raced. Who could have done this? Who would have had the documents? When I finally got my phone call, I dialed my lawyer immediately. Who gave them the evidence? I demanded, pacing the small holding cell. There was a pause before he answered. It must have been Ethan Harris. Chapter 9. The island was breathtaking, surrounded by turquoise waters and soft white sand. It felt like stepping into another world, one untouched by the chaos I'd left behind. Preston had arranged everything for the wedding quick, quiet, and intimate. The ceremony took place under a canopy on the beach, with just a handful of witnesses, Preston's men, who stood silently in the background. I wore a simple white dress Preston had somehow procured, and he stood across from me in a crisp white shirt and slacks. The entire moment felt surreal. "I do," I said, my voice steady. Preston grinned as he slipped the ring onto my finger. His touch lingered on my hand, and for a fleeting moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Warmth. It wasn't until we walked hand in hand along the beach after the ceremony that it hit me I had always been drawn to Preston. I just never noticed it before, too blinded by Travis's lies and manipulation. But now, standing beside him, I couldn't deny the way he made me feel. We had dinner at a small restaurant on the island, surrounded by the sound of the waves and the occasional crackle of fireworks lighting up the night sky. When dessert arrived, I froze, staring down at the yogurt ice cream in front of me. "How did you know?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Preston leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smirk on his face. "I used to see you eat it all the time in college. You always had that little cup with you after class." My lips parted slightly as the memories came rushing back. He had noticed me then? Even Travis never paid attention to that, I muttered under my breath, but Preston heard me. "Travis never paid attention to anything that mattered," he said simply. I smiled, a small, genuine smile, as I picked up the spoon. For the first time in a long time, I felt valued. When I glanced up at Preston, I caught him staring at me. His gaze was steady, intense, yet soft in a way that made my heart skip. Neither of us spoke. The fireworks lit up the sky again, casting flickering colors across his face, and without thinking, I leaned closer. Our lips met, slow and uncertain at first, then deeper as the world around us disappeared. It was just us, the fireworks, and the crashing waves. The next morning, I woke to the sunlight streaming through the window and the comforting weight of Preston's arm draped over me. I turned my head, finding him still asleep, his features relaxed and peaceful. I thought about the night before, the kiss, the way we'd fallen into each other's arms. I didn't expect it to happen, but as I lay there, I realized I didn't regret it. Preston stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw me watching him, he smiled. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep and rough with sleep. "Good morning," I replied softly. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. "I'll make breakfast," he said. "Then we can spend the day exploring the island." I nodded, watching as he got up and left the room. As soon as he was gone, I reached for my phone. The first notification was a news alert about Travis. He had been released from custody. The documents were damning but not enough to hold him. Now, the authorities were trying to locate the doctors who had performed the surgery on my mother. The report also mentioned that my funeral was scheduled for tomorrow. An idea began to form in my mind, sharp and clear. When Preston returned with breakfast, I told him everything. The next day, as the funeral service for Zoe Hart began, another story was breaking in the media. Breaking: billionaire Preston Urie marries mysterious woman on private island. The accompanying photo was of me, or rather, Emily. My features were subtly different, the makeup, the angle, the strategically placed mole. But it was unmistakably me. Chapter 10. The announcement of our marriage had thrown the media into a frenzy. Speculation ran wild, with every outlet trying to uncover the mysterious Emily Urie's true identity. Photos from the island were splashed across screens, and every headline posed the same question: is Emily really Zoe Hart? But Preston had covered every detail, ensuring they would never find proof. Still, it didn't stop Travis. Word spread quickly that he was frantically mobilizing his men, barking orders for them to track me down. People had spotted him pacing outside his office, snapping at his staff, his desperation bleeding into every action. But I wasn't worried. Preston had planned for this. One night, as Preston and I sat on the balcony overlooking the vast ocean, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and smirked. Well. Speak of the devil. Who is it?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. "Travis," he said, putting the call on speaker. He answered with his usual calm confidence. "Hello? What the hell are you doing with my wife?" Travis's voice was sharp, desperate, and laced with fury. Preston leaned back in his chair, completely unfazed. "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. My wife is Emily, and Zoe is dead." "She's not dead." Travis shouted. I know it's her. Don't play games with me, Preston. I'll find her. Preston raised an eyebrow at me, amused, as if to say, your move. I leaned closer to the phone, my smile cold. Through the speaker, Travis's tone shifted, becoming almost pleading. Zoe, if you're listening, please, listen to me. Preston isn't who you think he is. He's not a good choice for you. I know I messed up. I know I made mistakes. But I'll fix it. Just come back to me. He sounded pathetic, his words dripping with desperation. I couldn't help myself, I laughed. Travis, I said, my voice steady and sharp, you're pathetic. And for the record, I'm not Zoe. I'm Emily Yuri. Your wife is dead. Before he could respond, I hung up, tossing the phone onto the table. Preston chuckled, shaking his head. That was cold. He deserves worse, I said simply, leaning back in my chair. A few days later, Preston received an invitation to an exclusive auction. It wasn't just any auction. This was a high-profile event, one where the elite gathered, including people like Madison and, undoubtedly, Travis. I didn't hesitate. Let's go, I said. Preston raised an eyebrow. You sure? I smiled. It's time to show them we're not hiding. After our island honeymoon, we returned to Preston's estate. The sprawling mansion was every bit as grand as I imagined, with marble floors, towering ceilings, and walls lined with priceless art. But it wasn't the grandeur that caught my attention when we walked through the front doors. It was the small details, the fresh flowers on the dining table, the scent of my favorite candle wafting through the air, and a cozy nook in the corner that looked like it had been made just for me. Preston had thought of everything. You've been busy, I said, raising an eyebrow. I wanted to make it feel like home, he replied casually, but there was a hint of something deeper in his tone. We walked into the dining room, where a small dinner had been prepared. Candles flickered softly, and the table was set for two. I glanced at him, a teasing smile on my lips. You're really good at pretending to be my husband, huh? Preston turned to me, his expression suddenly serious. What if I wasn't pretending, he asked. His words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. What if this isn't fake, Zoe? His voice was steady, his gaze unwavering. I swallowed, caught off guard. It's fake, I said, almost like I needed to convince myself. Right? I mean, this is just part of the plan. Preston shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. It's not fake. Preston, I started, but he cut me off. Do you know why I offered to help you? He asked, leaning closer. I stayed silent, my heart pounding. Because I'd been in love with you for years. Since college, he said, his tone soft but certain. What? My voice came out barely above a whisper. You didn't notice me back then. You were too busy with Ethan. But I noticed you, Zoe. Every little thing. And when I saw you again, I knew I couldn't let you go this time. I stared at him, trying to process his words. He grinned, leaning back in his chair. Now that you're mine, there's no way I'm letting you go. Chapter 11. Preston's POV. The first time I saw Zoe Hart, she walked into the library like she owned the place. I had been sitting in the back corner, pretending to study but barely paying attention to the book in front of me. Then she walked in, laughing softly at something her friend said. She had this energy, this light about her that made everything else fade into the background. I couldn't stop staring. But Zoe didn't even notice me. She was too focused on Ethan Harris, her boyfriend at the time. He was waiting for her at a table by the window, flashing his smug smile like he already owned the world. I hated him. He didn't deserve her. For weeks, I stayed in the background, watching her from a distance. I memorized the way she twisted her hair when she was focused, the way she bit her lip when she read something interesting. But she never noticed me. And when I heard they were getting married, I left the country. I told myself I needed to move on, to forget her. But forgetting Zoe Hart was impossible. Years later, when I learned she'd married Travis Harper instead, my first thought was that I had been too late again. By the time I found out how badly she needed help, how trapped she was, it was already done. But now, as I watched her move around the kitchen, I knew one thing for certain, I wouldn't let her go this time. No matter what. I leaned against the doorway, watching her as she prepared breakfast. She was still awkward around me, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting with the utensils, but there was a softness in her movements now, She was getting comfortable. Her bump was small but noticeable, and it sent a strange mix of emotions through me: protectiveness, admiration, and maybe something deeper I didn't want to name just yet. "Zoe," I said, stepping into the kitchen. She looked up, startled, then quickly turned back to the stove. "Yes?" "I've scheduled a doctor's appointment for you this afternoon," I said. Her hand paused mid-stir. "You did what?" "For the baby," I clarified, stepping closer. "It's important to make sure everything's okay." Her brows furrowed, and for a moment, I thought she'd argue. But then she sighed, nodding. "Fine." We had breakfast together, sitting at the small dining table by the window. The conversation was light, almost comfortable. She was warming up to me, and I wasn't going to waste that chance. At the hospital, Zoe sat in the waiting area, her hands resting on her lap. The appointment was taking longer than expected, and she was starting to fidget. "I'll grab us some water," I said, standing up. "The vending machine's just down the hall." She nodded, her eyes drifting toward the window. I left her there. But when I returned, the chair where she'd been sitting was empty. My chest tightened. "Zoe?" I called, glancing around the room. No response. I scanned the hallway, my mind racing. She wouldn't just leave. Something must have happened. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. I had men stationed outside the hospital, but if she'd wandered off without telling me, I had to find her first. I was halfway down the corridor when I heard hurried footsteps. "Preston." I turned to see Zoe rushing toward me, her cheeks flushed, her breathing heavy. "What happened?" I asked, moving toward her. Her eyes were wild, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I saw him. The doctor who operated on my mother. He's here, Preston. We need to get to him. He could be the witness we need against Travis." I didn't ask how she was so sure. The determination in her eyes was enough. I grabbed her arm gently. "Where did you see him?" She pointed down the hall. "That way." "He was heading toward the east wing," she said, and described the doctor to me. I pulled out my phone and dialed one of my men. "Get inside the hospital. We're looking for a doctor. Male, mid-40s, wearing a white coat. He's connected to the heart case. East wing. Named Kevin Locke." The voice on the other end responded with a curt "understood." I hung up and looked at Zoe. "Let's move." We combed through the hospital, moving quickly but discreetly. My men had spread out, covering multiple floors. Zoe stayed close to me, her eyes darting nervously at every corner. The east wing was quieter, almost deserted. We checked each corridor, but the doctor was nowhere in sight. "He was just here," Zoe whispered, frustration lacing her voice. "Keep looking," I said. "He couldn't have gone far." We pushed open doors, scanned waiting areas, and questioned a few nurses. No one seemed to know where he had gone. My phone buzzed. One of my men. "Sir, there's no sign of him inside the building," he said. "We're checking the exterior now." I exhaled sharply. "We're heading that way." The cool evening air hit us as we stepped outside. Zoe was beside me, her eyes scanning the parking lot and the shadowy spaces around the hospital grounds. The place was alive with activity: ambulances arriving, nurses stepping out for breaks, but there was no sign of the doctor. "Preston," Zoe said. She pointed toward the side of the building. "Over there. He might have gone that way." I nodded, signaling to two of my men nearby. "Check that direction," I ordered. They moved quickly, disappearing into the shadows. Zoe and I headed toward the opposite side. We reached the edge of the building, where the alley opened up to a small loading dock. "Do you think he ran?" Zoe asked, her voice barely audible. "Maybe," I said. "Or he's hiding because he saw you." Before I could say more, a noise above us made me freeze. A sharp, gut-wrenching scream tore through the night. We both looked up, our eyes darting to the rooftop. A figure stood at the edge, silhouetted against the faint glow of the city lights. For a split second, time seemed to stop. Then the figure fell. Zoe let out a gasp, her hands flying to her mouth as the body plummeted, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. We stood there, frozen, staring at the lifeless form crumpled on the pavement. It was the doctor. Chapter 12. The doctor's lifeless body hitting the ground was an image I couldn't shake. For days, it haunted me. The sound, the way his body crumpled, everything played on repeat in my mind. I barely slept, and my body finally gave out. Preston had stayed by my side as I recovered, watching me with concern that he didn't bother to hide. "Are you okay?" he asked softly one evening, his hand resting lightly on mine. I nodded, though my voice was firm. "I'm fine. And there's no way I'm skipping the auction." His brow furrowed, his disapproval clear, but I didn't give him time to argue. "This is the perfect chance to investigate what happened to the doctor," I continued. "It has to be Travis. He killed him to make sure there's no witness who could confirm what he did to my mother. And if we don't figure it out, he's going to get away with it." Preston sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Fine. But take care of yourself. And the baby." I placed a hand over my stomach, his reminder pulling me back for a moment. "I will," I said quietly. We were still talking when one of Preston's staff knocked on the door and stepped inside. "There's news," he said, glancing between us. "Ethan and Travis are already turning on each other. It's everywhere. The fallout is destroying their companies." "Let them fight," I said, leaning back with a satisfied smirk. "The more they tear each other apart, the better." Preston's lips curled into a grin. "We'll let them fight, but we'll stay close to Travis. He's the bigger threat." The staff hesitated. "There's more. Madison and Ethan, they've officially split." My smile widened. "Good. She's finally getting a taste of what she deserves." But the next part of the report hit harder. "Without a witness, the judge says there's no probable cause. They think the documents are fake, and since no one could say that it was true, then no case." I clenched my fists, anger surging through me. Of course they'd rule that way. Preston, however, didn't look surprised. He tilted his head thoughtfully. "If the law won't play fair, maybe it's time we make sure it does." I glanced at him, catching the meaning in his words. "You mean pay off the judge?" "Why not?" he said, his tone casual but deadly serious. "If Travis can play dirty, so can we." I didn't respond, but the idea planted itself firmly in my mind. Later that night, we prepared for the auction. The hall was buzzing with energy, filled with high-profile names, investors, and media. Everywhere I looked, people were talking, shaking hands, and exchanging fake smiles. The moment Preston entered, the room shifted. Conversation stopped, and all eyes turned to us. The rumors were immediate. "That's his wife. She looks just like Zoe Hart." "No, it can't be. Zoe's dead." I kept my head high, my hand resting lightly on Preston's arm. My bump was subtle but noticeable, and the moment people saw it, the whispers grew louder. "They're pregnant? Is this why he's been so secretive?" The media rushed forward, cameras flashing as questions were thrown our way. "Mr. Yuri, is this your wife? Mrs. Yuri, can you confirm if you're Zoe Hart? Are the rumors about your pregnancy true?" Preston's grip on my hand tightened slightly, a silent reminder to stay calm. "I can assure you," he said smoothly, "my wife is not Zoe Hart. This is Emily Yuri, and any resemblance is purely coincidence." I nodded along, keeping my expression neutral. "We're just here to enjoy the evening. Please respect our privacy." The questions didn't stop, but Preston's calm demeanor deflected most of them. And then, just as the crowd began to settle, the room exploded again. "Zoe!" The voice cut through the noise, sharp and unmistakable. I turned, my heart dropping as Travis pushed through the crowd. Before I could react, he wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a hug that felt suffocating. The cameras went wild, the flashes blinding as headlines practically wrote themselves in real time. Chapter 13. Ever since the auction, Travis hadn't left me alone. Flowers, gifts, incessant calls, I couldn't escape him. Every day, something new arrived at the estate. Roses with notes pleading for a second chance. Expensive jewelry I didn't want. And phone calls, even after we changed our numbers multiple times. At first, I tried to ignore it, but it quickly became suffocating. Preston didn't hesitate. He hired bodyguards, refusing to let me go anywhere alone. He even filed a restraining order against Travis. "Just let me handle this," he had said one night, his hand brushing against mine as we sat in the study. "You shouldn't have to deal with him anymore." For weeks, Travis stayed quiet. The gifts stopped, the calls ceased, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. But I knew it wasn't over. Despite the temporary peace, I didn't stop investigating my mother's case. With Preston's help, we kept digging into what happened the day she died. One afternoon, Preston came into the room with a folder in hand. "I've got a lead," he said, sitting beside me. "Who?" I asked, leaning forward. "A nurse," he replied. "She was in the operating room the day of your mother's surgery. She's been in hiding, living in the suburbs under a different name." My heart raced. This could be it. A witness. "I'm coming with you," I said immediately. Preston shook his head. "No. You need to stay here. It's not safe, especially with Travis still out there." "And with the baby dash I'm fine," I said quickly. But Preston wouldn't budge. He placed a hand on my stomach, his gaze softening. "Please, Zoe. Let me handle this." I hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. Just, be careful." "I will," he said, kissing my forehead before leaving. With Preston gone, I kept myself busy by organizing the baby's room. The walls were painted a soft yellow, and the furniture was simple but elegant. Every detail was chosen with care, and as I moved things around, I couldn't help but smile. Even though the baby wasn't his, Preston treated him as if it was his own. The way he talked about being a father made my chest ache in a way I hadn't expected. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where I could give Preston a child of his own. I must have fallen asleep while arranging things, because when I woke up, there was a strange pressure in my stomach. It wasn't pain exactly, but it was enough to make me worry. With Preston gone, I called one of the bodyguards. "I think I need to go to the hospital," I said. "We'll take you," he assured me. The car ride was tense, though I couldn't pinpoint why at first. Then one of the bodyguards spoke up. "We're being followed." I stiffened. "Who is it?" The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "It's him. It's Travis." My stomach twisted. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am," he said grimly. "He's been tailing us since we left the estate." I clenched my fists, my breathing shallow. The driver pressed harder on the accelerator, trying to shake him off. But Travis was relentless, weaving through traffic to stay on our tail. My phone buzzed, and I hesitated before answering. "Zoe," Travis's voice came through, frantic and desperate. "Just listen to me. I just want to talk." "No," I snapped. "Leave me alone." "Zoe, please," he shouted. "I need to see you." "I'll explain everything." I hung up, my heart pounding. The car sped up, trying to lose him, but Travis wasn't giving up. He was too determined. "Ma'am, stay calm," the bodyguard said. But calm was the last thing I felt. I didn't see what happened next. The car swerved sharply, and there was a sickening crunch of metal as we collided with something. Everything blurred: the sound of glass shattering, the jolt of impact, the distant echo of voices. Then darkness. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Preston. "Zoe," he said softly, his hand brushing against my cheek. "It's okay. You're safe." My throat felt dry, and my head pounded. What happened?" "You were in an accident," he said, his voice careful. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in my stomach stopped me. My stomach. The baby. I froze, my eyes wide as I met Preston's gaze. The answer was already there, written in the way he hesitated, the way his lips pressed together. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "Zoe." "No," I said louder, tears streaming down my face. Preston leaned closer, his hand steadying me as I broke apart. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. The weight of his words crushed me. The baby was gone. Chapter 14. I cried. The baby was gone, and no matter how much I told myself it was for the better, it still hurt. It didn't matter how I'd felt about the pregnancy at first, this had been my child. Preston sat beside me, his arms wrapped around me, grounding me as the sobs racked my body. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice steady, soothing. "We'll get through this." I pulled back, wiping my face with trembling hands. "Maybe this is better," I said softly. "At least Travis won't have anything to use against me anymore. Maybe it's for the best." Preston's jaw tightened, but he nodded, his hand resting gently on mine. "You're right," he said. "And next time, it will be different." I looked at him, confused. He gave me a small, sad smile. Next time, the baby will be ours. My chest tightened, and I felt a flicker of hope amid the pain. Yeah, I whispered. Next time. Preston kissed my forehead, then stood. I'll check on the discharge papers. Another doctor will be in soon to check on you. Just rest for now, okay? I nodded, watching him leave the room. The quiet felt heavier after he was gone. I stared at the ceiling, trying to keep the tears at bay, trying to push away the anger and guilt twisting inside me. The door opened, and I glanced over, expecting another nurse or doctor. But my heart stopped. It was Travis. He wore a doctor's coat, blending in so perfectly I hadn't realized it was him until he stepped closer. What are you? I started, panic rising as I reached for the call button. But before I could press it, Travis dropped to his knees. Please, he said, his voice breaking. Zoe, listen to me. My hand froze. I know it's you, he said, his eyes pleading. I've always known. I don't care what you call yourself, Emily, Zoe, it doesn't matter. I know it's you. I stared at him, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Get out, Travis. I'm done with you. He shook his head, his hands trembling. No. I can't. I messed up, I know that. But I love you. I've always loved you. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet room. You have a twisted way of showing it. I mean it, Zoe, he begged. I regret everything. Losing you, it's killing me. Please, just give me one more chance. I stood, ignoring the ache in my body as I glared down at him. One more chance? Are you serious? After everything you've done? Zoe, he whispered, his voice cracking. I'll change. I'll do whatever it takes. Just come back to me. I shook my head, my voice cold. It's too late, Travis. I hate you. Do you hear me? I hate you. He flinched, but I didn't stop. You ruined my life. You destroyed my family. You killed my mother, I said, almost screaming. I didn't. Don't lie to me. I shouted. I heard you, Travis. I heard you tell your friend everything. You admitted it. You killed her to save Madison's sister. Travis's face crumpled, and he reached for me, but I stepped back. Zoe, please, he begged. I didn't mean save it, I snapped. I don't need your excuses. I'm going to find someone who will testify, and I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life rotting in prison. His hands clenched into fists, his desperation turning into panic. I'll change. I swear, I'll fix this. I stared at him. You can't fix this. Especially not after what you've done this time. What do you mean? He repeated, confused. I laughed bitterly. Travis, you killed your own son. His face went pale, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't process the words. What? He whispered, his voice barely audible. The baby, I said, my tone flat. The baby I just lost. He was yours. Travis stayed frozen on the floor, his head in his hands, unable to process what I had just said. When he finally moved, his face was streaked with tears, his hands trembling. Zoe. I turned away, refusing to let myself feel anything for him. But then he stood, moving toward me. Please, he begged, his voice cracking. I can fix this. I'm sorry. Let me fix this. Come back to me and leave Preston. Before I could react, he reached out and tried to pull me into a hug. Don't touch me. I snapped, shoving him away with all the strength I had left. You don't get to do this, Travis. Not after everything. He stumbled back, his hands still raised as if trying to calm me. I didn't know, he muttered. I glared at him, my chest heaving with anger. You knew enough, Travis. You've always known what you were capable of. And now you have to live with the consequences. Before he could say another word, the door to the room swung open, and Preston walked in. The moment Preston saw Travis, his eyes darkened, and his jaw clenched. He didn't ask questions. Without a word, Preston stormed across the room and punched Travis square in the face. The sound of the impact echoed in the small space as Travis staggered back, clutching his jaw. Get away from my wife, Preston growled. Travis stumbled, blood dripping from his lip, but Preston didn't give him a chance to recover. He grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "You think you can just walk in here and harass her?" Preston hissed, his face inches from Travis. Travis struggled, his hands weakly gripping Preston's arms. This is between me and Zoe," he managed to say. "No," Preston snapped, his grip tightening. "You don't get to say her name anymore. She is my wife now. You've done enough damage. It ends here." He pulled out his phone and called someone. "I need the police at the hospital now," he said sharply. Travis' eyes widened, and he started to struggle harder. "No, wait. Please shut up," Preston barked, shoving him back against the wall. Within moments, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hallway. As the police entered the room, Preston stepped back, letting them take over. "This is harassment," Preston told the officers. "I want him charged." The officers nodded, moving quickly to restrain Travis. As they led him out of the room, Travis kept looking back at me, his lips trembling, his eyes begging for something I would never give him. Forgiveness. Chapter 15. The courtroom was cold and unwelcoming, but I couldn't look away. The nurse sat on the witness stand, her voice steady as she recounted everything she had witnessed that day in the operating room. "I was told not to ask questions," she said. But it was clear that the surgery wasn't following standard protocol. The orders came directly from Travis Harper. I sat quietly, my hands clenched in my lap. Travis, sitting across the room, shook his head, his face a mask of defiance. He denied everything, his lawyer weaving a web of excuses and counterarguments. But the evidence was stacked against him. My mother's surgery wasn't the only thing on trial. They had uncovered other crimes, too: embezzlement, bribery, and ties to illegal dealings within Harper Enterprises. Now, we just had to wait for the verdict. After the trial ended for the day, I returned home with Preston. The house felt quiet, heavier than usual. I tried to keep myself busy, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the baby I had lost and the life I was still trying to rebuild. Preston noticed. He always noticed. "You've been cooped up here for too long," he said one evening, sitting beside me on the couch. "I'm fine," I replied, though the words felt hollow. Preston tilted his head, studying me. "No, you're not. But that's okay. You don't have to be fine all the time." I sighed, leaning back. "What do you suggest, then?" He grinned, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Pack a bag. We're leaving this weekend." I blinked at him, surprised. "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise," he said, standing and holding out his hand. "Trust me." I hesitated, but the warmth in his gaze made it impossible to say no. That weekend, I found myself sitting beside Preston in a helicopter. "You're flying this thing?" I asked, half joking, though there was a hint of nervousness in my voice. Preston laughed, adjusting the controls. "Don't worry. I've got it under control." The blades roared to life, and soon we were lifting off, the ground falling away beneath us. I glanced out the window, the sprawling city shrinking into a blur of lights. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of excitement. "Where are we going?" I asked again, my voice raised over the hum of the helicopter. "You'll see," Preston replied, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The helicopter descended onto a private island, its white sandy beaches stretching out beneath the clear blue sky. As soon as we landed, Preston hopped out and opened my door, offering me his hand. "Welcome to paradise," he said with a grin. The island was breathtaking. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, and the sound of waves lapping against the shore filled the air. Preston had arranged everything. There was a small cabana set up near the water, complete with a table for two and a picnic basket. "This is incredible," I said, turning to him. He shrugged, his grin widening. "You deserve it." We spent the day exploring the island together. We walked along the beach, our feet sinking into the warm sand as we talked about everything and nothing. For the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. Really laughed. Preston was different. He didn't just listen, he paid attention. Every word, every expression, every unspoken thought. When we reached a secluded cove, he surprised me by pulling out a small bottle of champagne. "To new beginnings," he said, holding up his glass. I smiled, clinking my glass against his. "To new beginnings." As the sun began to set, we returned to the cabana for dinner. The food was simple but perfect: fresh seafood, tropical fruit, and Preston's surprisingly decent cooking skills. "You cooked this?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He smirked. "I had help. But I like to think I contributed." We ate as the sky turned shades of pink and orange, the sun dipping below the horizon. After dinner, we sat on the sand, watching the stars slowly appear in the night sky. "I've never felt this calm before," I admitted, leaning my head against his shoulder. Preston didn't respond right away. Instead, he reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. "You deserve calm," he said softly. "And happiness. And everything else this world has to offer." I looked up at him, my heart tightening. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" he asked, tilting his head. "For being here," I said. "For everything." The next morning, we flew back to Preston's estate, the helicopter cutting through the early morning clouds. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden glow over the sprawling fields surrounding the property. As we landed, the familiar sight of the estate came into view. "Home sweet home," Preston said, smiling as he grabbed our bags. I smiled back, following him toward the front entrance. But as we got closer, something felt off. Preston noticed it too, his posture stiffening slightly. Standing on the steps of the estate, waiting like a shadow from the past, was Ethan Harris. "Zoe," Ethan said, his voice tight, as if he'd been rehearsing what to say. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you doing here?" Preston asked, stepping in front of me instinctively. "I just want to talk to her," Ethan said, his hands raised as if to show he wasn't a threat. Preston didn't budge. "You've got 5 seconds to leave before I call security." "It's okay," I said quietly, placing a hand on Preston's arm. He glanced back at me, his expression cautious. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said, though my voice was steadier than I felt. "I'll hear what he has to say." Preston didn't look happy, but he nodded, stepping aside reluctantly. Ethan took a step forward and smiled. "Zoe," he started, "I'm just here to properly apologize about what I did to you, about cheating on you with Madison. I never got the chance to say this, but I really am sorry." Chapter 16. I studied him, unsure of what to say. Ethan Harris, the man who had once been my whole world, now stood before me as little more than a stranger. "I never meant to hurt you," he continued, his voice trembling. "If I could go back, I'd do everything differently." A part of me wanted to stay angry, to let him feel the weight of my pain. But anger was exhausting, and I was so tired. I didn't even think that he was going to apologize after all these years. It's funny how people regretted everything once it's too late. "I forgive you, Ethan," I said, my tone flat but final. "But this doesn't mean anything. I don't want you in my life anymore. Whatever guilt you're carrying, deal with it somewhere else. I'm done." His face crumpled, but he nodded. "I understand." "Good," I said, stepping back. "Now leave." He hesitated, then turned and walked away without another word. Preston appeared at my side as soon as Ethan was gone. "You okay?" I nodded, leaning into him. "Let's just move on." The next morning, a bouquet of flowers arrived. The card was simple: "I'm truly sorry. Ethan." I didn't even flinch. Preston walked into the room, spotting the flowers immediately. He raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. "Should I be jealous now?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Not a chance." Preston stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me. "Good," he murmured. "Because I love you, Zoe. And I'm never letting you go." My chest tightened as I smiled up at him. "I love you, too." He leaned down, his lips brushing against mine, and I kissed him back, feeling the warmth of his embrace melt away the lingering shadows of my past. Later that evening, I was curled up on the couch, mindlessly flipping through channels when a breaking news segment caught my attention. "Ethan Harris has officially filed for divorce from Madison Moon," the anchor announced. Sources confirmed that Madison's modeling agency has also chosen not to renew her contract, effectively ending her career. I leaned forward, watching as the screen filled with images of Madison leaving a courthouse, her head down and her expression defeated. The report continued, detailing how Madison's finances had crumbled. She was living in a hotel, selling off her possessions just to stay afloat. Preston walked in, catching the end of the report. Then, one of my staff entered the room, handing me a folder. Travis doesn't care about her anymore, he said. She's completely on her own. I closed the folder without even glancing at it. Let her stay in the gutter where she belongs. I don't care about her anymore. All I want is for Travis to go to jail. Preston nodded. That's exactly what's going to happen. The day of the trial finally came. The courtroom was packed, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Travis sat at the defendant's table, his face pale but still defiant. The evidence was undeniable, the testimony airtight. When the judge entered, everyone fell silent. The verdict was read, the words ringing through the room like a bell. Guilty. Travis' expression shattered, evident of crumbling as reality hit him. He was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole. As the courtroom erupted in whispers and murmurs, I turned to Preston, tears streaming down my face. It's over, I whispered, my voice trembling. Preston pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. It's over, he echoed. We walked out of the courthouse together, the media swarming around us. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but none of it mattered. The headlines were already being written, Travis Harper sentenced to life in prison. For the first time in years, I felt free. That night, we celebrated quietly at home. The house was warm and filled with laughter as we ate dinner together. Preston kept making jokes, and for once, I couldn't stop smiling. But then, out of nowhere, my stomach turned. I dropped my fork, rushing to the bathroom as nausea hit me like a wave. Zoe? Preston called. I tried to answer, but my head spun, and the next thing I knew, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in bed, Preston sitting beside me, his hand gripping mine tightly. You scared me, he said softly, his brow furrowed with worry. What happened? I asked, my voice hoarse. The doctor's here, he said, gesturing toward the figure standing at the foot of the bed. The doctor smiled gently. You're fine, Mrs. Yuri. Just a little fainting spell. Nothing to worry about. Then why did I faint? I asked, confused. The doctor's smile widened. Because you're pregnant. My heart stopped. What? I whispered. You're pregnant, the doctor repeated. Congratulations. I turned to Preston, who looked stunned for a moment before his face broke into a wide grin. We're having a baby, he said softly, his voice filled with wonder. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. For the first time, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of joy. Chapter 17. The days after discovering I was pregnant were filled with joy. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Travis was behind bars, the past was finally behind me, and I was building a future with Preston. Every morning, Preston would wake up before me, making sure I had breakfast ready and the house was filled with fresh flowers. It was almost comical how protective he had become. Do you need water? Are you comfortable? Should I get another pillow? He would ask, his brows furrowed with concern. I'd laugh, shaking my head. Preston, I'm fine. I'm pregnant, not fragile. But I secretly loved it. Travis, however, wasn't ready to let go. Letters started arriving at the estate, each one begging to see me. Zoe, I need to talk to you. Please. At least, see me? Forgive me. I tore them up without reading further. When he couldn't reach me through letters, he sent messages through mutual acquaintances. Congratulations on the baby, one said. Another read, I know you hate me but maybe we could see each other. I miss you. Each one made my stomach churn with anger. What does he want? I made it clear I didn't want him anymore. I ignored them all, throwing each message away without a second thought. Preston, as always, was by my side. He didn't allow me to be alone for a moment, balancing his business with taking care of me. At night, when the trauma crept in and the memories threatened to overwhelm me, he would hold me close, whispering softly until I fell asleep. You're safe, he'd say. I've got you. And he always did. At one of my doctor's appointments, we finally got the news. It's a boy, the doctor said, smiling as she pointed to the screen. I looked at Preston, tears welling in my eyes. A boy, I whispered. Preston grinned, his hand gripping mine tightly. We're having a son. We spent the rest of the day in a bubble of excitement, talking about names and what he might look like. Preston insisted he'd look just like me, while I teased that he'd probably inherit Preston's stubbornness. The following weekend, we went shopping for baby clothes. The mall was bustling, filled with families and couples, laughter echoing off the walls. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt normal. We browsed through tiny onesies and baby shoes, laughing as Preston held up outfits and made exaggerated faces. "This one," he said, holding up a tiny blue shirt with Mommy's little hero printed on it. I chuckled. "You're going to spoil him, aren't you?" "Absolutely," Preston replied without hesitation. We were so absorbed in our happiness that I didn't notice the man lurking behind me until it was too late. A hand grabbed my arm, yanking me backward with such force that I stumbled. "Don't scream," a voice hissed in my ear. I froze, my heart pounding as I realized what was happening. The man had a gun, and he was pulling me toward a corner of the store. "Zoe!" Preston's voice cut through the panic, but the man tightened his grip on me. "Stay back," the man shouted, waving the gun wildly. Everything around me blurred the shouts of people, the chaos of footsteps as shoppers scattered in every direction. "Let her go," Preston said. "Stay back," the man screamed again, his hand shaking as he pointed the gun at Preston. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears, my breathing shallow and erratic. And then, out of nowhere, there was a loud bang. The sound of gunfire echoed through the store, and I felt the man's grip loosen as he staggered backward. Preston was on him in an instant, tackling him to the ground and wrestling the gun away. "Run!" Preston shouted at me, but my legs felt rooted to the floor. Another gunshot rang out, and I flinched, ducking instinctively. By the time I looked up, Preston had subdued the man, pinning him to the ground as security rushed in. But the relief was short-lived. As I stood there, trembling, I felt something wet trickle down my leg. I looked down, and my breath hitched. "Blood." "Preston," I whispered, panic rising in my chest. He turned, his eyes widening as he saw the blood. "No," he said, his voice breaking as he rushed to my side. I tried to speak, to tell him I was fine, but the words wouldn't come. My vision blurred, and the last thing I saw was Preston's terrified face as I collapsed into his arms. Chapter 18. The sound of the hospital monitor beeped steadily, grounding me as I opened my eyes. My body ached, but my first instinct was to place a hand over my stomach. "The baby," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You're both fine," Preston said softly, sitting by my side, his hand gripping mine. "The baby is safe. But you need to rest." I let out a shaky breath, relief washing over me. But the memory of them all being grabbed, the gunfire still lingered in my mind. "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Preston's expression hardened. "We investigated it. The police said it was a holdup. You were just unlucky, Zoe. Wrong place, wrong time." His words didn't sit right with me. Something about the entire incident felt off. "No," I said, shaking my head. "That wasn't random, Preston. It felt like more than that." Preston frowned, studying me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't believe it was a coincidence," I said firmly. "Someone wanted to hurt me. I'm sure of it." Preston exhaled, his jaw tightening. "If that's what you think, I'll have it reinvestigated. But for now, you need to focus on resting." "I don't want to be alone," I admitted, my voice cracking slightly. "You won't be," Preston said, leaning closer. "I've stationed bodyguards outside your room. And I'm not going anywhere. I promise." The days that followed were slow and nerve-wracking. The doctors insisted on keeping me in the hospital. My pregnancy was fragile, and they wanted to monitor me closely. Preston was always by my side, making sure I had everything I needed. But at night, when the room grew quiet, the fear crept back in. I thought about the baby, about everything I had fought so hard to build. I thought about the chaos I had left behind and how it always seemed to find me again. Preston would sit beside me, holding my hand whenever I got lost in my thoughts. "We'll get through this," he'd say, his voice steady and reassuring. And I believed him. A few days later, one of Preston's staff entered my hospital room. "We've been reviewing the CCTV footage from the mall," he said, glancing at Preston. "And?" Preston asked, his voice sharp. The staff member hesitated. "It wasn't random. Madison was spotted in the area. She seemed to be keeping an eye on Zoe. We believe she orchestrated the attack." The blood drained from my face. "Madison?" I whispered, my stomach twisting. She wanted revenge, the man continued. It's clear this wasn't just about money. She's trying to hurt you, Zoe. Preston stood, his posture tense. I want her found. Now. And I want this information shared with the media. She needs to know she can't hide from this. The man nodded, quickly leaving the room to carry out the orders. I sat there, frozen, as Preston returned to my side. Zoe, he said gently, crouching beside me. I'll handle this. You don't need to worry about her. But I thought it was over, I said, my voice shaking. I thought Travis was the last of it. Preston took my hands in his. She's desperate. She has nothing left. People like her don't know how to let go. But she's not going to hurt you. I won't let her. That same evening, as I sat in bed trying to calm my nerves, a nurse entered the room carrying a small package. This was delivered for you, she said, placing it on the bedside table. Preston and I exchanged a look before he reached for it, opening it carefully. The moment the lid lifted, a metallic smell hit me, and my stomach churned. Inside was baby clothes filled with blood. Next to it was a piece of paper with a message scrawled in red ink, take everything from you. You ruined me. So I'm going to Madison. I felt my breath hitch, my chest tightening as panic set in. Preston slammed the box shut, his face dark with fury. That's it, he growled. She's going to pay for this. I couldn't speak, my mind spinning as I stared at the closed box. Not long after the package arrived, the television in my hospital room flickered to life. I wasn't paying much attention at first, my mind still reeling from Madison's threat. But then I heard Preston's name. In Scandal, the anchor announced, her voice sharp and dramatic. Billionaire Preston Urie. I froze, my eyes snapping to the screen. Photos began flashing across the television. Preston, smiling, standing close to a woman with long dark hair. And then the next image stopped my heart. He was kissing her. It wasn't just a friendly peck or an innocent moment taken out of context. It was intimate, his hand cupping her face as if she meant something to him. No, I whispered, shaking my head, my pulse racing. I turned to Preston, who was sitting beside me, his face suddenly pale. What is the meaning of this? I asked, my voice trembling as I gestured toward the screen. Chapter 19. The image on the television burned into my mind. Preston kissing another woman. It wasn't just a glimpse. It was real, his face, his hands, his lips. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening with every passing second. What is the meaning of this? I asked, my voice trembling. Preston stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing as if trying to find the right words. Zoe, he started, his voice calm but urgent. It's not what it looks like. That's not me. I scoffed, my anger bubbling to the surface. Not you? Preston, I'm staring at it. It's you, clear as day. It's not, he insisted, stepping closer to me. You know me, Zoe. I would never do that. I would never hurt you like that. Don't, I snapped, cutting him off. Don't stand there and lie to me. His eyes softened, his hands raised in surrender. I swear to you, Zoe. I don't know what this is or how it happened, but it isn't real. It's not me. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. I've been betrayed too many times, Preston. I don't know what to believe anymore. Preston reached for me, but I stepped back, my hand pressed protectively against my stomach. Zoe, he said, his voice breaking. Please, believe me. I love you. It's always been you. Get out, I whispered, my voice cold. What? I don't want to see you, I said, louder this time. We're done, Preston. I want a divorce. His face crumpled. No, Zoe. Please. I'll prove it wasn't me. Just don't do this. But before I could say another word, a sharp pain shot through my stomach. I gasped, clutching at my side as the pain deepened. Zoe! Preston shouted, rushing to my side. A nurse entered the room at the commotion, quickly calling for the doctor. Preston stayed close, his hand on mine, his face lined with worry. You need to stay calm, the nurse said. Stress isn't good for the baby. Preston looked at me, his expression conflicted. I'll leave, he said quietly. If that's what you want, I'll leave. Just, please take care of yourself and the baby. He turned and walked out without another word, leaving me alone in the suffocating silence of the room. I sat there, staring at the walls, replaying the image over and over in my head. The woman. The kiss. Preston's hands on her. How could he? Tears streamed down my face, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop them. I had trusted him. He was supposed to be different. As I sat in my misery, my phone buzzed on the bedside table. I hesitated before picking it up, a strange sense of dread washing over me. The message was from an unknown number. Check this out, it read, followed by a video link. I clicked on it, my heart pounding. The screen lit up with another video. Preston again. This time it wasn't just a photo. It was footage of him kissing the same woman, his hands on her waist, his body pressed close. I dropped the phone, my entire body trembling. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an illusion. He cheated. That night, I sat in bed, my mind spinning. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. How did this keep happening to me? First Ethan, then Travis, and now Preston. It felt like some cruel cosmic punishment, as if I wasn't meant to have happiness. I thought about the baby, about the life I wanted to give him. There was no way I could let my child grow up in the shadow of betrayal. I refused to let him see me broken, clinging to someone who didn't deserve me. By the time the sun began to rise, I had made my decision. I would leave Preston. I didn't know where I would go or how I would start over again, but I couldn't stay. Not after this. Not again. I wouldn't be fooled 3 times again. The early morning light seeped through the curtains as I packed my bag, moving quietly so no one would hear me. My heart raced, my chest tight as I thought about leaving. This was the only way. I couldn't stay here, not after what I'd seen. But when I opened the door to step outside, my heart sank. Preston was there, standing in the hall as if he'd been waiting for me. "Zoe," he said softly. "What are you doing?" I gritted my teeth, my fingers tightening around the strap of my bag. "What does it look like?" "I'm leaving." He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "You can't just walk away. Please, tell me what you need." "I'll do anything, I need you out of my life," I snapped. "Draft the divorce papers, Preston. Now." His face twisted with pain, and for a moment, I thought he might let me go. But instead, he shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "I won't give up on us. I'll prove it wasn't me in that video, Zoe. I swear to you, I'll prove it." "Preston, please," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "Just give me a chance to fix this. I don't know how, but I'll find a way. I love you, Zoe. I love our baby. I can't lose you." I wanted to believe him, but the image of him kissing that woman flashed in my mind again, and the ache in my chest deepened. "Don't do this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Then he did something I hadn't expected. He dropped to his knees in front of me, his hands trembling. "Zoe, please," he begged. "I'll do anything. Just don't leave. Let me fix this." I stared down at him, my resolve faltering for just a moment before I forced myself to look away. "I can't," I whispered. "Not right now. I need time." I stepped around him, clutching my bag tightly as I walked away, leaving him kneeling in the hallway. Chapter 20. Preston didn't follow me after I walked away. But he didn't stop texting me. "Zoe, are you okay? I'm sorry. Please talk to me. I love you. Let me prove it wasn't me." He didn't demand or accuse. Instead, his messages were gentle, full of concern and regret. But I didn't reply. I couldn't. Even though a part of me wanted to believe him, the image of him kissing another woman played in my mind on repeat. I couldn't let my guard down, not again. So I silenced my phone. For days, I stayed in a hotel, hiding from the world. The curtains were drawn, the television muted most of the time, and I tried to pretend that the outside didn't exist. But the world didn't forget me. The news was relentless, my name plastered across headlines again. "Zoe Hart, betrayed again? The billionaire's wife faces another cheating scandal. Is Zoe the problem? Why do men keep leaving her?" I stared blankly at the screen, the words burning into my mind. They weren't just reporting, they were pitying me. Sympathizing. Speculating that I was the one to blame. I grabbed the remote, my thumb hovering over the power button, when the broadcast shifted. Preston. He stood behind a podium at a press conference. It looks like he didn't get enough sleep. I felt guilty. I love him, but cheating on me again, I was done with it. I want to make this clear, he said, the video circulating of me is fake. I did not cheat on my wife. I have never been unfaithful to her, and I never will be. My chest tightened as I watched him, his voice carrying a conviction I hadn't heard in days. I love Zoe, he continued. She is my wife, and I will do whatever it takes to protect her and clear my name. I've also issued a reward for anyone with information on Madison Moon's whereabouts. This ends now. I turned the television off, sinking back onto the bed. It was like I was stuck in an endless loop, the same nightmare replaying over and over. First Ethan, then Travis, and now this. Was it me? Was I cursed to always feel this way, to never be free of betrayal? Tears rolled down my cheeks as I buried my face in my hands. I had forgiven Ethan. I had forgiven Travis. But none of it felt like it mattered. Madison. She was the only one left, the last shadow hanging over me. If I wanted peace, I had to end this. As I sat there, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it, my heart skipping when I saw the caller ID. Ethan. I hesitated, debating whether to answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Zoe, Ethan said, his voice softer than I expected. Are you okay? I blinked, caught off guard. Not really, I admitted. There was a pause on the other end. I heard about everything. I'm sorry, Zoe. You don't deserve this. I stayed silent, unsure how to respond. I've been looking into Madison, Ethan continued. She's still out there, Zoe. I've got a few ideas where she might be hiding. That caught my attention. Why are you helping me? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. He sighed. Because LOU, Zoe. For everything. I broke your heart, and I know I can't undo that. But maybe I can at least help you now. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Thank you, I said quietly. He gave me a list of locations places Madison might be hiding. Each one sent a chill down my spine, but I wrote them down. Good luck, Zoe, Ethan said before hanging up. I didn't waste time. I grabbed my bag, throwing on a coat and sunglasses before stepping out of the hotel room. The hallways were quiet, my footsteps echoing as I moved toward the elevator. I couldn't let this drag on any longer. I had to confront Madison, to end this chapter of my life once and for all. But just as I turned a corner, I collided with someone. Sorry, I said quickly, stepping back and looking up. My breath caught in my throat. It was Preston. What are you doing here? I frustration. Demanded, my voice sharp with the man blinked, clearly confused. What? He repeated, his brows furrowing. I'm sorry, but I don't know why you were asking me that. So, what now, Preston? You're gonna pretend that you don't know me? Preston? His brows furrowed. I'm sorry. I think you got the wrong person. I froze, staring at him. His voice, his face, even the way he carried himself, it was all Preston. But the words didn't match. You're lying, I said, narrowing my eyes. Look, lady, he said, stepping back. I don't know who you are or what you're talking about. I clenched my fists, my pulse quickening. Was this some sick joke? Was he playing with me, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was losing my mind? Before I could speak, a woman appeared, walking up to him with an air of familiarity that sent a cold chill through my body. It was her. The woman from the video. She slipped her arm through his and smiled up at him. What's going on? She asked, her voice sickeningly sweet as she looked between us. My rage boiled over. You. I hissed, stepping forward. My fists clenched at my sides, my entire body trembling with fury. What's your problem? The woman asked, her brow furrowed as if she was genuinely confused. I didn't think. I lunged at her, my anger exploding into action. She shrieked, stumbling back, but before I could reach her, the man grabbed me, his hands firm but not aggressive. Stop, he shouted, holding me back. I glared at him, my heart pounding, my vision clouded with fury. So what, Preston? I spat. You're going to pretend you don't know me? Is this how you deal with it when you dash? Wait, the woman interrupted, her voice sharp and cutting through the chaos. Both the man and I turned to her. Why do you keep saying Preston? She asked, her tone laced with genuine confusion. My boyfriend's name is Ailstair. I froze, the air leaving my lungs as I stared at her. What? Chapter 21. My boyfriend's name is Ailstair. It didn't make sense. The man in front of me looked exactly like Preston. Same sharp jawline, same intense eyes, same way of holding himself. But this wasn't him. Who are you trying to fool? I demanded, my voice sharp as I glared at him. I'm not trying to fool anyone, he said, his tone measured as if trying to calm me down. My name is Ailstair. I don't know who Preston is, but you've clearly mistaken me for someone else. Impossible, I hissed, my fists trembling. He sighed and reached into his back pocket, pulling out his wallet. From it, he produced an ID card and handed it to me. The name read, Ailstair Miller. I stared at the card, my heart pounding. The photo was of the man standing in front of me, and the details listed a foreign address. He was a tourist, apparently here with the woman now nervously standing by his side. This is a joke, I muttered, shaking my head. You're trying to cover something up. Look, Ailstair said. I don't know who Preston is, and I'm sorry if I upset you. But I promise you, I'm not him. Candace and I are here on a trip. That's all. Candace, the woman in the video, nodded quickly. We're just tourists, she added. I don't know why you're so upset, but I think you've made a mistake. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the pieces in my head weren't fitting together. How could someone look so much like Preston and not be him? Then Ailstair said something that made my stomach drop. I grew up in an orphanage, he explained, his expression softening. I don't know much about my family. Maybe there's something, but I don't have the answers you're looking for. My heart raced as the realization hit me. Twins. Preston never mentioned a twin, I whispered to myself, but the possibility felt undeniable. I took a step back, trying to process everything. Wait here, I said, pulling out my phone. I need to call Preston. He'll clear this up. I dialed Preston's number, my fingers trembling as I hit the call button. It rang once. Twice. Then straight to voicemail. I tried again, only for the same result. Frustrated, I turned back to Ailstair and Candace. You have to wait. I need to figure this out. If Preston sees you, maybe he'll know what's going on. Ailstair exchanged a glance with Candace before nodding. Fine. But make it quick. We've got plans. I left them and hurried out of the building, dialing Preston's number over and over. Pick up, I muttered under my breath. Please, just pick up. By the time I reached my car, I still hadn't gotten through to him. Panic clawed at my chest as I drove back to the estate, my thoughts spiraling. Was Preston ignoring me? Or was something wrong? When I pulled up to the house, the staff immediately came to greet me, their expressions tense. Where's Preston? I demanded, stepping out of the car. One of the staff members hesitated. He left a few hours ago, she said. He went with some men to follow a lead on Madison's hideout. My stomach dropped. What? I asked, my voice trembling. We thought he told you, the staff member added quickly. He left in a hurry. He hasn't been answering his phone since. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. Do you know where he went? What lead? The staff exchanged worried glances before one of them said, We're not entirely sure. He mentioned something about tracking Madison, but he didn't give us details. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to stand tall. How long has it been since anyone heard from him? Hours, another staff member admitted. The weight of their words settled over me like a heavy fog. I paced the living room, my mind racing. Preston had gone after Madison, the same woman who had been sending threats and orchestrating attacks against me. And now he was missing. I tried calling him again, but it was useless. The phone rang endlessly before cutting to voicemail. Damn it, I whispered, gripping the phone tightly. The hours crawled by, each second heavier than the last. The staff tried to reassure me, but I could see the worry in their eyes. Finally, one of them entered the room, his face pale. Ma'am, he said hesitantly, we've just received word. Preston, he's missing. I felt the air leave my lungs, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. What do you mean, missing? I demanded, my voice rising. We don't know, he said quickly. The men he went with haven't reported back. No one's heard from them. My vision blurred as panic consumed me. The thought of losing Preston, of something happening to him, was unbearable. Find him, I whispered, my voice cracking. Do whatever it takes. Just find him. Chapter 22. Still no news? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The staff shook their heads, their expressions apologetic. We're doing everything we can, Mrs. Yuri. We've contacted everyone, and the search teams are working around the clock. I nodded, but their words did little to ease the knot in my chest. Preston had been missing for days now, and with each passing hour, the fear inside me grew. I sat by the window, staring out at the rain streaking down the glass, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. I had sent countless messages to Preston, desperate for any response. Where are you? Please come home. I'm sorry, Preston. Please, just answer me. But there was nothing. Guilt consumed me. This was my fault. I should have believed him. I should have trusted him when he said the video wasn't real. Instead, I pushed him away, and now he was gone. The weight of my mistake felt unbearable. I'll fix this, I whispered to myself, as if saying it out loud would make it true. With no other leads to occupy my mind, I decided to confirm what had been gnawing at me since meeting Aylster. I arranged for a DNA test, submitting samples from both him and Preston. When the results arrived, I held the envelope in my trembling hands, my breath catching as I tore it open. Match, identical twins. I stared at the words, my mind reeling. How was this possible? Aylster, who had been waiting nearby, seemed just as shocked when I showed him the results. I don't know what to say, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. I grew up in an orphanage. No one ever told me I had a brother. Despite the confusion, Aylster didn't hesitate to step in. I'll help, he said firmly. I'll do whatever it takes to find him. I'll even handle the media to clear his name. Preston doesn't deserve this. I nodded, grateful for his support, even as the weight of everything threatened to crush me. Days turned into an endless blur of searching and waiting. There were no leads, no updates, just an overwhelming silence that felt suffocating. My thoughts spiraled as I sat alone in the house, my hands trembling with every text I sent to Preston's unanswered phone. The stress became unbearable, and one evening, as I sat clutching my stomach, I felt a sharp, searing pain. No, I whispered, panic setting in as the pain grew worse. The staff found me moments later, pale and shaking, and rushed me to the hospital. When I woke up, the room was quiet, save for the steady beep of the monitors beside me. Something felt wrong. Empty. Voice barely audible. Where's my baby? I asked. The doctor looked at me, her expression sympathetic. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Yuri. We did everything we could, but the stress was too much. Her words faded into the background as my world shattered. The baby was gone. Tears streamed down my face as I turned away, unable to process the loss. Everything I had fought for, everything I had tried to protect, was slipping through my fingers. Hours later, a nurse entered with a package. This arrived for you, she said softly, placing it on the table beside me. I stared at it, dread pooling in my stomach. Slowly, I reached for it, my hands trembling as I opened the box. Inside were black roses, their dark petals ominous and cold. And there was a letter. I unfolded it, my heart pounding as I read the words scrawled in red ink. You will never find Preston again because he is dead. The box fell from my hands, crashing to the floor as a scream tore from my throat. No. I sobbed, clutching the sheets, my body shaking uncontrollably. Preston couldn't be gone. He couldn't be. But the words on the letter felt like a death sentence, and all I could do was cry. I was still reeling from the letter when my phone buzzed on the bedside table. Aylster's name flashed on the screen, and I snatched it up, hope clawing its way through the despair. Zoe, Aylster said quickly, his tone urgent. The police have a lead on Madison. She was spotted at the airport, trying to leave the country. I sat up, my heart pounding. Where is she now? They blocked her at the gate, he explained. She's in custody. They're holding her at the airport until further instructions. I'm coming, I said immediately, throwing off the blanket and swinging my legs over the side of the bed. Are you sure? Elster asked cautiously. Yes, I said, my voice firm. I need to see her. The drive to the airport felt like an eternity. My thoughts spiraled as I imagined what Madison might say, what she might know. When I arrived, the sight of her sent a surge of rage coursing through me. Madison sat in a chair, her hands chained in front of her, looking smug despite the situation. Her perfectly styled hair and flawless makeup didn't match the chaos she had caused. As soon as I saw her, I marched up and slapped her across the face. Where is Preston? I shouted, my voice trembling with anger. Madison slowly turned her head back to me, a cruel smile curling on her lips. Oh, Zoe, she drawled. Still so dramatic. Answer me. I yelled, my chest heaving. She chuckled, her laugh cold and cutting. Well, let's just say he's gone underwater. Perhaps being eaten by a shark as we speak. Her words hit me like a blow, my knees nearly buckling. You're lying, I whispered, my voice shaking. Madison raised an eyebrow, her expression dripping with mockery. AM1? She reached into her bag, which one of the officers handed her under supervision, and pulled out a phone. She tapped the screen a few times before holding it up for me to see. The video played, and my blood ran cold. It showed Preston driving a yacht, his expression focused as he pursued what I could only assume was Madison's vessel. The water was choppy, the waves slamming against the sides of the yacht. Then it happened. The yacht hit something, another boat or a hidden obstacle, I couldn't tell. Preston was thrown violently, his body hitting the side before he disappeared overboard into the dark water. The video ended abruptly, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. No, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Chapter 23 Preston's POV. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the sound of waves crashing against the shore. My head throbbed, and my body felt like it had been dragged through hell. You're awake, a soft voice said, pulling my attention. I turned to see a woman sitting by my side, her face kind but unfamiliar. She held a damp cloth in her hand, dabbing it against my forehead. Where am I? I croaked, my voice rough and strained. You're safe, she said, smiling gently. You washed up on the shore a few days ago. My family and I have been taking care of you. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through my head, making me wince. Don't push yourself, she said quickly, placing a hand on my shoulder. You hit your head pretty badly. You need to rest. What happened? I asked, my mind swirling with fragments of memories that didn't make sense. You don't remember? She asked, her expression shifting to concern. I shook my head, the motion making me dizzy. No. Nothing. She hesitated before speaking again. My name is Lucia. I'm your wife. Her words sent a jolt through me. My wife? I repeated, staring at her. Yes, she said, her tone firm but kind. We were on a trip when the accident happened. You don't remember me, do you? I shook my head again, confusion and doubt swirling inside me. Days passed, and I stayed on the island, recovering under Lucia's care. She was attentive, always making sure I had everything I needed, but something didn't sit right. She claimed to be my wife, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember her. Instead, I kept dreaming of someone else, a woman with soft eyes and a voice that felt like home. I couldn't see her clearly, but the dreams were persistent. Every night, I'd wake up with her name on the tip of my tongue, only to have it slip away. Lucia noticed my unease. You're still trying to remember, aren't you? She asked one evening as we sat by the fire. I nodded, unsure of how to answer without offending her. It'll come back, she said, her tone reassuring. You just need more time. I forced a smile, but the nagging suspicion in the back of my mind wouldn't go away. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard Lucia's voice drifting through the thin walls of the small house. She was on the phone, her tone hushed but urgent. He doesn't remember anything, she said. It's working. He believes I'm his wife. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. What about the woman? The voice on the other end asked, too faint for me to make out completely. Lucia's reply was sharp. She won't find him. He's mine now. The air felt heavy as the realization hit me. They were lying to me. But why? The next night, I made my move. I waited until everyone in the house was asleep before sneaking out. I found a small yacht docked at the edge of the island and quickly climbed aboard. It wasn't easy navigating in the dark, especially with no memory of where I was or where I needed to go. But I knew one thing for certain: I had to get away. The sea was rough, the waves crashing against the hull as I steered blindly toward the horizon. After hours of drifting, I spotted another island in the distance. As I approached, the faint sound of a radio caught my attention. I adjusted the dial, and a breaking news report crackled to life. Billionaire Preston remains missing as the search continues, the anchor announced. I froze. The screen displayed a press conference. A man who looked exactly like me stood at the podium, speaking to reporters. Escalating. Beside him stood two women. One looked familiar, her eyes filled with pain, as if she had been crying. And suddenly, it hit me. Her. She was the woman from my dreams. The fragments of memory began piecing themselves together. I had been following someone when my yacht hit something, and I was thrown overboard. The moment I docked at the new city, I started asking questions. People pointed me in the direction of a nearby estate, and though I didn't fully understand why, my feet carried me there without hesitation. The gates loomed ahead, and my heart pounded as I rang the doorbell. A moment later, the door swung open, and there she was. Her eyes widened, and tears immediately spilled down her cheeks. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Preston, you're alive." Before I could say anything, she threw her arms around me, holding me as if she would never let go. Chapter 24. Preston, it's me, I whispered, almost crying. I thought I had lost him. He stared at me, his brows furrowed in confusion. I don't remember everything, he admitted, his voice soft but strained. I know your face, but it's like trying to grab water, it keeps slipping away. Tears blurred my vision as I held onto his hands. It's okay, I said, forcing a smile. You're here now, and that's all that matters. The doctors had advised that Preston stay in the hospital for further observation. The head injury he sustained from the yacht accident had left him with partial amnesia, and they wanted to monitor his progress as he healed. I stayed by his side every day, recounting our memories together, no matter how painful it was to watch him struggle to piece it all together. Remember when we went to the vineyard in Tuscany? I asked one afternoon, sitting beside his hospital bed. You said you'd never tasted wine that good before, and you tried to steal a bottle for us to take home. He chuckled faintly, his eyes softening. Think I remember that. The red wine, right? It was raining that day? Yes. I said, my heart swelling with hope. And we got soaked running back to the car. His smile faltered, and he ran a hand through his hair. It's still all so blurry, Zoe. I hate this. I hate not knowing. It'll come back, I assured him, placing my hand over his. We'll work through it together. Escalating visited often, though he, too, was grappling with the mystery of how he and Preston had been separated. It must have been a family thing, Escalating said one evening as we sat in the hospital room. Maybe our parents couldn't keep us both, or something happened. I grew up in an orphanage, and no one ever told me I had a twin. Preston nodded, his expression distant. I'll figure it out eventually. But right now, my priority is getting back to Zoe and to us. While Preston worked on regaining his memories, the chaos surrounding Madison only grew worse. She was locked up, but without Preston's full recollection or concrete evidence, the trial was at a standstill. Reports from the jail said she was unraveling, her mental state deteriorating. The frustration ate away at Preston. One night, he asked me about the baby. Zoe, he began, his voice trembling. I heard what happened. That you lost the baby. I swallowed hard, the ache in my chest resurfacing. Yes, I said quietly. His jaw tightened, and he looked away, guilt etched into his face. It's my fault, he muttered. If I hadn't gone after Madison, if I had just stayed. Stop, I interrupted, reaching for his hand. It's not your fault, Preston. What matters is that you're alive. We can't change the past, but we can move forward. Together. He nodded, though the guilt in his eyes lingered. A week later, everything changed. A package arrived at the hospital, addressed to me. Inside was a recording tape and a letter from Travis. I hesitated before reading it, my fingers trembling as I unfolded the paper. Zoe, I know I can never make up for what I've done, but I want you to have this. Consider it my way of helping you get the justice you deserve. The tape contains Madison's plans, everything she did to you and Preston. The mall, the accident, even her plot to harm your baby. She orchestrated it all. I hope you'll find closure in this and maybe, one day, forgive me. Travis, tears filled my eyes as I read the letter. For the first time, I felt something other than anger toward him. The tape revealed Madison's full confession, her voice cold and calculated as she outlined every detail of her schemes. It was chilling to hear, but it was exactly what we needed. With this evidence, the trial could finally proceed. I wrote a letter back to Travis, thanking him. For the first time, I forgave him. Madison was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison. There would be no more threats from her, no more chaos. Meanwhile, Preston was making progress. After weeks of therapy and constant reminders, fragments of his memories began to resurface. One afternoon, as we sat together in the hospital garden, he looked at me with a flicker of recognition in his eyes. A few days later, during a therapy session, more pieces fell into place. I was following someone, he said, his brows furrowing as he tried to focus. On the yacht. Madison. I was trying to catch up to her. That's right, I said, nodding. And then, he paused, his eyes distant. The crash. I hit something, and I remember falling into the water. You're remembering, I said, my voice trembling with hope. He nodded slowly, his hand reaching out to cover mine. And I remember you. I remember loving you, Zoe. Chapter 25. Close your eyes, Preston said, his voice soft but firm as he guided me down the hallway. Preston, I laughed, trying to peek. What are you doing? No peeking, he said, his hand gently covering my eyes. I mean it. I sighed, letting him lead me blindly, my curiosity growing by the second. The sound of soft music drifted through the air, and the faint scent of candles tickled my nose. Finally, he stopped and moved behind me, his hands resting on my shoulders. Okay, he said. You can open them now. I opened my eyes and gasped. The dining room had been transformed. Fairy lights draped across the ceiling, casting a warm golden glow. A table for two sat in the center of the room, adorned with candles and roses. Soft music played in the background, and the atmosphere felt like something out of a dream. Preston, I whispered, turning to him. He smiled, his eyes full of warmth. Do you like it? It's perfect, I said, tears welling in my eyes. He pulled out a chair for me, gesturing for me to sit. I wanted to do something special for you. For us. I'm sorry for forgetting you, but I swear my heart will never forget about you. The dinner was intimate and perfect. We laughed and talked, sharing stories and memories that felt even sweeter now that Preston had regained his. He leaned in often, his hand brushing against mine, his gaze never leaving my face. As the night wore on, the mood turned more serious. I've been thinking a lot about the baby we lost, Preston said softly, his voice heavy with emotion. I reached across the table, taking his hand in mine. Preston, I think about it too. But we can't change what happened. What matters is that we're here now, together. He nodded, squeezing my hand. You're right. And I promise, Zoe, whatever happens next, I'll be here. I won't let anything happen to us. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned to Preston, my heart full. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. I don't think I've ever loved anyone the way I love you, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, leaning into his touch. You've made me feel loved in ways I never thought possible. He kissed me then, slow and tender, his hands roaming down my back as he pulled me closer. The world melted away as we lost ourselves in each other, our love reaffirmed with every touch and whisper. The next morning, I woke to the feeling of Preston's arms around me. Good morning, he murmured, his voice still heavy with sleep. Good morning, I replied, turning to face him. He smiled, brushing his lips against my forehead. How do you feel? Happy, I said simply. His grin widened, and he kissed me again, lingering for a moment before finally getting out of bed. Later that afternoon, we received a call from Ailstair. You're not going to believe this, he said, excitement lacing his voice. What is it? Preston asked, putting the call on speaker so I could hear. I found her, Ailstair said. The woman who ran the orphanage where I grew up. She remembered everything, Preston. Turns out, we were separated because our parents had a fight. They gave me up, and they never came back. It's sad, but at least, I have you now. Preston was quiet for a moment, processing the information until finally he spoke. I'm sorry you have to live like that, but it's okay now. We'll make up for lost time, Aylster. I promise. A week later, we attended Aylster and Candace's wedding. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with joy and laughter. Watching Preston and Aylster together, I felt a sense of peace knowing they had finally found each other. You know, I said to Preston as we danced under the stars, you're a really good brother. He grinned. And you're a pretty great wife. The happiness didn't end there. We received word that Madison had been transferred to a mental health facility instead of staying in prison. Her mind had unraveled completely after everything she had done. I don't feel sorry for her, Preston admitted when we heard the news. Neither do I said honestly. But I feel at peace knowing she can't hurt us anymore. He nodded, pulling me into his arms. We're finally free, Zoe. A few weeks later, I woke up feeling strange. My stomach churned, and I rushed to the bathroom, nausea hitting me in waves. Preston found me there. Zoe, are you okay? I nodded slowly, a realization dawning on me. Preston, I said, looking up at him. I think I'm pregnant. His eyes widened, and a smile broke across his face. Are you serious? I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. Preston knelt in front of me, his hands resting on my stomach. This time, he said softly, I promise our baby will be safe. I won't let anything happen to you or them. I smiled through my tears, knowing deep in my heart that this time, everything would be okay. Book 2 and Zoe, are you comfortable? Preston's voice broke through my thoughts as I sat on the couch, surrounded by pillows. I looked up from the book I was pretending to read and smiled. I'm fine, Preston. He stood nearby, holding a tray with a glass of water, some fruit, and a small stack of crackers. Are you sure? You haven't moved for an hour. Should I get another pillow? Maybe you need Preston, I interrupted, laughing softly. I'm okay. Really? He set the tray down on the table in front of me and sat beside me, his hand instinctively resting on my growing belly. I just want to make sure everything is perfect, he said, his tone softening. You're spoiling me, I teased, leaning into him. He smiled, pressing a kiss to my temple. You deserve it. Preston had been nothing short of amazing throughout the pregnancy. From the moment we found out I was expecting, he had thrown himself into the role of doting husband and father-to-be. He attended every doctor's appointment, asked a million questions, and even read parenting books late into the night. You know, I said one evening as he read aloud from What to Expect When You're Expecting, you're going to know more about this than I do soon. He grinned, flipping the page. Good. That way, I can help you through it. I couldn't help but fall in love with him all over again. Candace was also pregnant, and her due date wasn't far from mine. It was almost comical watching Preston and Aylster navigate the chaos together. I don't understand why she suddenly wants pickles and chocolate ice cream at 2 in the morning, Aylster groaned one day as we all sat together for lunch. Preston chuckled. Just wait. It gets more unpredictable. The two of them had grown close in the months since they'd reunited. It was heartwarming to see them bond as brothers, sharing laughs and stories as if they hadn't spent decades apart. As my belly grew, so did our excitement. Preston insisted on turning one of the guest rooms into the nursery himself. I watched from a chair in the corner as he painted the walls a soft cream color and assembled cribs with meticulous care. You don't have to do everything yourself, I said, smiling as he stood back to admire his work. I want to, he replied, wiping his hands on a rag. I want them to know from the very beginning how much they're loved. Tears pricked my eyes at his words. When the day finally came, it was as if time stopped. The labor was long and exhausting, but Preston never left my side. He held my hand, whispered encouragement, and stayed calm even when I wasn't. You're doing amazing, Zoe, he said. And then, after what felt like an eternity, we heard the first cries. It's a boy, the doctor announced, holding up our son. Moments later, a second cry filled the room. And a girl. Tears streamed down my face as I held them for the first time. Tiny, perfect, and ours. Preston leaned over, kissing my forehead. You're incredible, he whispered. Thank you for giving me this. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and overwhelming joy. We named our son Liam and our daughter Lila. From the moment they came into our lives, they became the center of our world. Preston was a natural with them, changing diapers, rocking them to sleep, and even singing lullabies in a soft, off-key voice that made me smile every time. "You're good at this," I said one night as I watched him hold Lila, her tiny hand wrapped around his finger. He looked up at me, his eyes full of love. "It's easy when you love them this much." As the months passed, Liam and Lila grew quickly, their personalities already beginning to shine. Liam was curious and adventurous, always reaching for things and babbling with wide-eyed excitement. Lila, on the other hand, was calm and observant, content to watch the world around her with a quiet wisdom that seemed far beyond her age. Preston adored them both, but I could tell he had a soft spot for his daughter. "She's going to have me wrapped around her little finger," he said one day as he held her in his arms. "She already does," I teased, watching as Lila giggled at him. Candace and Ailstair welcomed their baby, a boy named Oliver, a few weeks after Liam and Lila were born. The twins' bond only grew stronger as they navigated fatherhood together, and our families spent countless afternoons together, laughing and watching our children play. "I never thought life could be like this," Preston said one evening as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset while the baby slept inside. "Neither did I admitted, resting my head on his shoulder. One morning, as I stood in the kitchen preparing breakfast, I felt a wave of nausea hit me. "Zoe?" Preston's concerned voice came from behind me as I rushed to the sink. When I turned around, he was already at my side, his hand on my back. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, the realization dawning on me. I began, my voice trembling. "I think I'm pregnant again." Preston's eyes widened, and then a wide grin spread across his face. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice full of excitement. I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Oh." He kissed me. "This is really a happy family, Zoe."